Hello and welcome to RPGs Uncovered for our very last episode of RPGs Uncovered Season 4. We've spent the last 2 months or so playing and talking about Cyberrats, which has been just an incredible game. I was looking forward to it so much for so long. It finally came out. It's a beautiful game. I'm so glad that Alex, for one, you made it, and two, you are here. You were here joining us for this, and continue to be so here for our review and analysis. Which I say review and analysis, but this is really just a bunch of people talking about the game and what types of stories, what types of players, what types of GMs are probably going to work best for this. So we're going to stay away from arbitrary rating systems and pros versus cons list, but it should be a good discussion. And at the end of it, you should know whether this is a game that you think you're gonna really vibe with, and I hope you do. Not every game is for everyone, but it's a super fun game. So if you've been enjoying the show, I highly recommend you head over to the links, and I'll actually drop Alex's links right now, so you can go check that out and maybe pick up a copy of yourself for yourself. Uh, anyway, yeah, we have a little bit more time during this episode because it's not a super intense story mission or anything. So we're gonna take a little bit more time just going over through everybody. Talking about what we're doing, just because we missed that last week, and we're all just here to talk about the game and each other and have a good time. I also want to also want to say to all of you fine folks out there, if you have any questions or comments, anything you want to know about the game or about the show, feel free to pop in and chat, ask your own questions, join into the conversation, and we'll have a nice chat. Anyway, yes, this is RPGs Uncovered, a series dedicated to showing just how quick and easy it can be to learn a new TTRPG. I have had so much fun running this season. It's been an excellent demo play in my mind. I hope it was for all of you out there. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. And there's still plenty more to do. But projecting forward, I am still looking into setting up season 5. There was a little bumpy road getting there, but I think we're gonna get that set up soon. So we're gonna take a few weeks on a break, because I could use a break. We'll take a couple weeks on a break. I might do some of my own writing, so keep an eye out on Ko-Fi. I might do some solo streams, whatever that may be, so the channel just isn't dead. But we're gonna be down RPGs Uncovered for a couple weeks, and then probably look into running some one shots or some solo games, or just some extra content out there, so we can keep the RPGs Uncovered feel going until we get season 5 on the road. So keep an eye out for what that might be. Join our Discord, join us over on Twitter, so you can keep up with the latest announcements. Of course, we do still have our Whip Workshop creator interviews. There might be one this Wednesday. I'm trying to squeeze one in. So again, be on the lookout for any announcements there. But we will have a Whip Workshop creator interview about an upcoming game, Bridgetown, on the 5th. And not only the two co-creators of that game, but also the indie publisher that helped make that, who is helping make that a book that you can pick up and enjoy. So stop by on Wednesday. I believe that's going to be 7 p.m. EST as normal. And finally, if you do like what we're doing here on RPGs Uncovered, the best way you can help support is to head over to Ko-Fi. We have a number of different pledge tiers for you to get player side extras and insights, GM extras and insights, including all of my own notes and any NPCs or stat blocks I may come up with throughout the game. And anything we get through that goes right back into the community to help me buy new games and help pay artists and musicians. So it goes right back into the community. And, of course, I want to shout out one more time, we do have the Mayhem meter just below our screen here, so you can scroll down, there's a little banner, you can click on that. I don't really have any plans for what a Mayhem meter can bring to a conversation. I might think of something, but first and foremost, it is there to help support this amazing cast. I believe we are at $159 for this entire season. That's going to be split 5 ways, all of us on here equally. So if you feel like giving, if you feel like further supporting this cast, we'll see if I can make some mayhem. We might make it happen, but otherwise, it's just know that you are filling our little tomato hearts with all of the love and also capitalism points. So thank you in advance for that. I think I've been yammering on for far too long now. I'm used to keeping this much briefer at this point. So let me throw it over to my fantastic cast one final time, at least for the intro. Say hello and talk about, I suppose, who you played, a little insight, and I don't know what you're up to. Let me throw it over as we usually do to Alex, Mr. Cyberrats.
Hello. I am Alex Rinehart. For the past 2 months, I have been playing Freighter Joe, the lovable dumb brute, as well as Nibbles, the complicated, absent-minded rat swarm who did not survive this adventure. I make a lot of RPGs, but these days I am all Cyberrats all the time. We have physical copies available. You can get a nice hardcover. And I am also working on playtesting the expansion, Rise of the Briny Bastards, which you can help playtest. I have playtest documents available, so reach out to me. You can find me on Twitter. My link is in the chat. And also, tomorrow, I am recording with a wonderful cast a fully scripted 2-act play in the Cyberrats universe called the Cyberrats Radio Hour. So look for that this summer, probably, because recording it is not unfortunately, that's just the first step and not the hardest one. So that is me. Follow me on Twitter. Find all of my games and all of my projects. And that's all I have today.
All that editing, all that rendering. Oh man, I do not envy you. Or whoever you have doing that. All
A
right.
wonderful team.
Awesome. Awesome. I am very much looking forward to that. Q, hello, and welcome for one final time, at least here.
Hi, I'm Q, brought to you by the power of spite and caffeine. Uh,
One of
we're
those
here,
days.
right? I am, just a person of the internet. You can find me midnight_Inc. That's INQ. Q is my name. I'm sure you get it. I am a performer. I am a lover of many things nerdy. I am working on getting some Magic the Gathering content started. We'll see how that goes. Yeah, no, I've got some pieces set up, and we've tried Spell Table. So we're gonna see if we can make something happen.
Nice.
I played um the here for a good time and a long time, apparently. Cyborg Hank, brother of Hayden, the superstar. And I also played the contentious and very anti-establishment pack rat. Uh, yeah, and just had an incredible time.
Awesome. Love to hear it. All right. Once more, Aaron, welcome and hello.
Hello, I'm Erin. I am a performer, game designer, layout artist. I wear a lot of hats in TTRPGs. You can find me on Twitter at Vale's Edge Games and on itch under the same name. And also, I also have stuff on Drive-Thru under Aaron Tierney as well. I played Esme, the femme fatale rat swarm who went from supporting the company to wanting to burn it all down, and Ash, a budding criminal who is an explosives expert. and just wants everyone to make it back alive.
Oh well.
Oh, yikes. Yikes.
JD,
Yikes.
hello. Hello, friend.
That was a yikes, Jack. R.I.P. Nibbles. I'm JD. I am a performer. I am a sometimes GM. You can find me in so many places. Live from the Apocalypse and Tales from the Table Studios most frequently. And you can always keep track of my exploits on my Twitter, as I try to keep that updated not only with the chaos that is going on in the games that I am a part of, and especially the one I am about to GM, but also each different show I might be in, since I'm often jumping into one-shots on a variety of channels. In this game, I played Hayden, the cyborg who just wants to be a performer, and saw a lot of horrible things that they were not expecting, and probably is going to need to process all of that at some point. And Ian, who just wanted to commit the perfect crime, and the direction of that crime definitely changed over the course of the session when he became pretty much everyone's confidant. So yeah, I'm excited to see what happens next in our epilogue and anything that might follow.
Yeah, we'll see about that. There might be cause for another little rat heist in the future.
Heist.
Yes. So, yeah, let's just jump into this today. I will say the first half, probably more like first third of this, we'll see about it. We're going to round out the finale of our demo play. We're gonna have a little memorial for our fallen comrade Nibbles, and then jump into some epilogues, and then from there we will actually get into the review and analysis and talk about Cyberrats and how you can have so much fun in it. So if you do have any questions about the game or about the show, jot those down, make notes, and we can talk about that when we are done with our epilogues. But let us begin now. Fading in from a bright white screen as the flash of the interloper mothership finally subsides, where you can see chunks of the moon flying off into the solar system as a large crater has been dug into it. Probably not enough to destabilize its orbit, but it's gonna change the profile of the moon going forward. This was a huge accomplishment for us little Earthlings and rat kind. But unfortunately, not everyone survived this mission, and we pick up after a little bit of a time lapse, not long, a couple days or so, and we find ourselves, the 7 of us remaining, out on a deck of the GDG spaceship that we have, this commandeered interloper UFO. We are, as usual, high up in the atmosphere, and the shields have been extended. A better atmosphere has been pumped around the outside of the ship to allow us to have a high-altitude memorial service for our fallen friend, Nibbles. We see that all of the important crew is there. Director Himalaya, certainly. We have Big Neil there. We have Dr. Algernon Flowers and Nurse Winona Whiskers. And, of course, Dr. Tallulah Tails. And our 7 remaining Cyberrat operatives. This is, of course, a memorial and not a full funeral. There was no body recovered, unfortunately. Nibbles went up with the interloper spaceship when it exploded. But we can gather here today as high up in the atmosphere as we can, as close to the event as we can. and celebrate the life and accomplishments of Nibbles. It's a relatively simple service, as you would imagine from a very much corporate event, especially with a small elite strike team that has been the GDG Alliance crew. And we see Director Himalaya up at the front of this staging area, and we see there's a big printout of Nibbles in some pose. Let me actually ask you, Alex, what is Nibbles' memorial portrait?
Yeah, I'm so glad you asked. It is a statue, and you can see the individual rats. And like the bulk of the statue is, roughly the shape that Nibbles was with the rats holding up the glasses. But trailing off, there is just other rats strewn about as part of the statue. That like you have to watch out and make sure you don't trip over them because there's just like a hunk of bronze about.
Love it. Love it. It's just a whole bunch of these guys. Just all over the place.
Exactly.
Love it. And on the other side of the podium, there is, of course, a wreath of ivy and flowers designed together in the GDG Alliance logo. There's a few chairs that have been set up facing this podium, which looks out. It's at this high up in the atmosphere. We can see that it normally would be daytime, but you get that very picturesque, very surreal, clear visible line between the blue-green of the atmosphere and looking down on the Earth and being able to look out amongst the stars unblocked by the atmosphere that would normally conceal them during the day. Probably not a view that you could get if it weren't for this alien ship that you have. Director Himalaya will open this service. Co-workers, comrades, friends, perhaps. We are gathered here today to pay our final respects to Nibbles, who gave their life defending their teammates and ensuring the success of our most recent mission. It has been a long and arduous battle for all of humanity, but I do believe that we would not be here today celebrating a fine individual and the successful saving of this planet if it were not for this alliance and the actions and determination of the remaining Cyberrats operatives. You all did very good work. But we are here to say our final farewells to Nibbles. I'm sure each of you have had your own relationship, as it might be. Teams such as this can bond quickly in the heat of battle and the tensions that come with that and the release of those in between missions. So I open the floor up to each of you if you would like to come up and speak. But let me say one last final sign of appreciation. Nibbles was an interesting character, though his acumen in his chosen field was extraordinary. Unusual, but extraordinary. And the accomplishments that he aided your teams to see, I imagine was invaluable. And as a show of appreciation and support for our fallen comrade, I would like it to be known that any remaining debt that Nibbles has incurred has been posthumously expunged from record, and he will be retired with honors. I leave the floor to you all to say whatever words you would like. And she reaches down into a basket. Probably just reaches down into a basket of white roses, takes one, sort of turns and looks out amongst the star field and the earth below, and just tosses it off the ship. She'll stand there for 5 seconds or so, and turn around and walk back, take a seat, and as she sits down, motions for anybody to walk up.
I think Ian steps up first. And just takes his time. His swarm of rats, who are much more close-knit than Nibble's swarm typically was. And I think he's holding Nibble's death letter in his hand. And he steps up and says, "Look, I know we can all agree that Nibbles was complicated, as were all of our relationships with him. Nibbles found himself on the path that so many of us have been on, of not realizing who his true enemies were, and at times mistaking those of us on his team for those exact enemies. And that led to a lot of friction, and it made things really hard. And I am so proud of Nibbles for seeing the light. I mean, at the end there, when he sacrificed himself to defeat the interlopers, he clearly knew who his enemies were. And he made his choice recognizing that. And from everything I've heard from the rest of you, those of you who were on that mission, the things that he did, the way he ensured no one was left behind, that showed how much he had changed and how he had taken all of our words and our feedback and all of our hope for him to heart. It's a shame he won't be able to be with us on the next chapter, but I have no doubt that we can all make him proud. And there, Ian goes, picks up one of those roses himself, steps over to the edge, and more quietly says, "Thank you, Nibbles. I'll make sure that your brother is well taken care of," and tosses the rose out and goes back to his seat.
Cool.
Hard act to follow.
Yeah.
All right, I'll try. Hank is gonna step up. Just immediately grab a rose. And Jack, with your permission, uh, and of course Alex, because it is your character.
Mhm.
Right ahead.
There was a moment where you said we saw in slow motion what was happening, and you could see the moment of self-sacrifice. Could Hank, being the fast and speedy one that he was, scoop up one of the rats?
Sure.
Okay. Okay.
We've seen that that Nibbles is very much more than just the sum of his rats.
Correct.
We probably all have some of Nibbles among our
Yeah.
rats, to be honest.
And they're just in drawers. You'll be finding them for years.
Um, Hank steps up, sort of looking at the rows, and pulls from the pocket of his, uh, camo vest. It was probably a military jacket at some point, but it's been studded all to hell. The sleeves have been taken off. He pulls out one of the rats from Nibble's swarm. The little buddy's a little singed because there was an explosion. But he's looking alive and goes, if it weren't for Nibbles, I wouldn't be alive. Which, don't get me wrong, is a good thing. But more importantly, my siblings alive. He saved us, saved them from a moment where I couldn't have, right? There was a lot of drama, for a while there. He was sort of wild and crazy. But in the last moment, I figured out why. I understand why now. You'll do anything for the ones you love. Even be a monster. Relative, There's definitely worse monsters, and there's just a brief look at Himalaya. This is very quick. I am eternally grateful. I'm gonna hang on to this little guy for as long as he'll let me, and gonna make sure that I'm gonna live my life and make sure Hayden gets to live theirs to the fullest. Because that, death wasn't in vain. Won't be, as long as I can help it. Yeah. Hank will go over and just yeet, chuck a rose, and then go back to his seat next to Hayden.
I think Esme will then step up and she just she takes a rose and she looks at it for a second and she just says, "We rats don't live very long. Makes it hard to be around long enough to do great things. I think Nibbles did a great thing on that ship. And I think that he did it in service of saving the rest of us. And I think that the rest of us are going to go on and do more great things even after this. I think Nibbles was like a lot of us rats. He was underestimated. And also gives a glance to Himalaya. And then sort of walks over and just flicks the rose out into space. And then sits down.
Alex, you're gonna talk about your character?
I think if I may, I think what I would like to do is have the camera pan over to the next of kin letter and just have Nibbles narrate that.
I love that. I
Mhm.
think that tracks. I think Ian is sitting there with the letter out, so we can see those words.
Yeah, so we get, a reaction shot of the crowd and then we pan over to the letter. And it's very much, a corporate form. It looks like a tax form. At the top it says next of kin, Ian. Relation to deceased, and Nibbles has written, "You were nice to me once." Ian, I thought about what you said today, about looking out for one another. I'll try it, but I don't think it's going to stick. I've made enemies here. I know I have. And if I fall, I won't blame you for leaving me behind. It's what I would have done for you. Just do me a favor, okay? When my brother gets here, will you lie to him? Tell him I died heroically. Tell him I died saving you. It'll be good for him to believe. Better than the truth. Better, maybe, than I deserve.
I wish we had an emotional damage button because I would be hitting that nonstop.
And we hear that narrated in Nibble's own voice as we see the rest of the crew come up and take a flower and sort of look out amongst the group here, turn, look out amongst the world. They might have a private moment to themselves, and each in turn, Big Neil, Dr. Flowers, Dr. Tails, the rest of your characters, unless they have something specific they would also like to say, in turn, all walk up and throw a rose off of the ship. Cute.
Packrat isn't there.
Packrat's not there.
They were there originally.
Okay.
After Ian's eulogy, they were gone. But there is a rose at the bottom of the statue.
Okay.
Incredible. I will say I think there is one final moment for Ian before everyone leaves, and he walks over to Esme and softly, so no one else will hear, says, "Those were some pretty words up there today, Esme. You know, outside of Nibbles, you're the one I've wondered about the most. And the thing is, I heard what happened on that mission. I heard that when you went down, Nibbles went back to get you. And I just hope that you don't forget that." and that you remember who your true allies are, and that whatever you do next, you do for the right reasons and in honor of Nibble's sacrifice.
First of all, everything I do is pretty. But... And she takes off one of the white rats. That is one of the psychic rats. That is around her neck, and hands it to you, and says, "Take that as a show of good faith. It's all the information I have so far on anything that might be relevant. Ship designs, conversations with Himalaya, the construction of the augury, various plans."
You know, Esme, you might surprise me just as much as Nibbles did, though I hope your ending is much different than his. And I truly mean that.
All right. I think with that, Himalaya stands up, goes back up to the front, gestures for everybody to stand, everyone remaining to stand. Big Neil is going to come out with the comparatively tiniest little trumpet you've ever seen in a 10-foot tall gigantic rat's hands, and is going to toot out some taps. And then as that comes to an end and the camera swivels back to the behind view, the screen is going to fade to sepia as our 7 remaining operatives look at each other, look amongst the crowd, nod back at the Nibbles Memorial, and turn and walk back inside. And here we can drop into an epilogue. I like to, as a GM, little bit of behind the screens demo play GM insights for me. Whenever I have a campaign that definitively comes to an end, or at least as definitively as it can with the story that has been told, I like to give my players the opportunity to explore what might come next for them. I believe this comes from I don't remember which I remember seeing it first, whether it was Fallout New Vegas or whether it was a Fire Emblem game. But I know at the end of one of them, I believe in New Vegas, it would fade to sepia and we'd get all these different like ongoing stories that all the characters that we've seen so far
And
came up
Hellboy
with.
whispers in your ear.
So I like to give my players a chance to do that with their characters and project forward as to things that they'd like to see happen to their characters that we didn't get to throughout our story. So let me just pass it back to you guys. This is going to be very, very player driven. But first, Q. Yes, Q.
Okay, I already know. I want to start.
All right, go ahead.
From the moment that they leave, Pack Rat is disappearing into the ship. They already did it with the mothership. They know how the ships work. They are becoming one with the machine. The other rats will get messages from them, but they are like a ghost in the machine, effectively.
All right.
So that one is just, yeah, they're just like we already had the information for learning how to ship, and I had a crash course on how to control it
Yeah.
with the bigger ones. So this is gonna be a piece of cake.
Yeah.
So yeah, so Pack Rat is getting to work for reasons. Who knows? Who knows what's in store? Um, I think for Hank, um, I think it probably takes a little bit of work, a little bit of research, some testing, but I think uh, Hank goes under the scalpel or something. Um, he has a procedure done to, rather than be a cyborg, become a brute. Kind of have his body match what his sort of neural network is saying should be happening. So comes out, probably still has some cybernetic parts because they just stuffed rat bits into a robot body, but it's a much larger frame. He's got a bigger chassis now, and the pain is far more manageable. Probably has some phantom pains every now and then, but those are far easier to deal with, and he's more honest about when those happen because he promised he would be.
Beautiful. Uh, yeah, so first we see Pack Rat as a pack of rats swarm into the inner walls of the ship, and I assume we see clusters of rats make their way to sensor control and life support control and propulsion control and weapons control, and we just see these little clusters of vaguely cybernetically infused rats, because I
Yep.
remember you took
Uh-huh.
on pieces of the mothership. So we
Yep.
see almost like these neural clusters of Borg rats plugging themselves into various components of the GDG ship,
Yeah.
completely masking their own presence to the internal sensors that they are now kind of a part of. And Pack Rat, in a way, becomes the ship. And
Yeah.
we may see what more that means in the future. But for now, Pack Rat has gone MIA. Nobody's seen him since the memorial.
Probably took some of those white lab rats. Don't know who those belong to,
Mm,
but they started disappearing off of the ship too. It's fine.
yeah. And then we see Hank in probably a series, a montage of being with Hayden in Dr. Flower's office, talking about the procedure, defining, looking at charts and talking about medications. We see Dr. Flowers with Nurse Winona sort of wiping the brow as he's deep in the procedure of removing Hank from the cybernetic chassis, and then a series of more montages as he undergoes the procedure to genetically bolster his form, take a tiny little rat and grow him into a 10-foot tall brute of a rat. Uh, we see the physical therapy needed to learn how to walk and use your body after that. We see a few more cybernetic pieces tacked on to make sure things are working correctly and minimizing pain. And we probably see a number of interactions between Hank and Hayden as Hank comes out of this whole montage a very different person, probably both internally and externally.
Yeah.
Who's next?
I think Freighter Joe is going to. have a scene sitting at the dockyard if we're back on the ground, or if we're not, then in the hangar bay of the ship. But basically, wherever there are big, comforting crates to be moved around. And he's going to be sitting on one of the crates, looking out, again, if we're on the ground, out to the sea, if we're in the air, out to space.
Where would you like to be?
Let's say on the ground. He spent much of his life moving crates around on the port, so he's sitting out here looking out, and he's holding a small rat that he believes was once part of Nibble's. Whether or not it is anyone's guess. And he's just saying, you know, Nibbles, I always said when this was all over that I'd like to. I always said when this was all over that I would like to get on one of these crates and ride out to sea and just see where it goes. But now that I have the chance to do that, I don't know. There's a lot of unknown out there. The people around here, they aren't so bad. So yeah, I'll hop on a crate, maybe tomorrow, or the next day. Next week at most. But for now, maybe I'll stick around. And he takes the random dock rat and puts it in a pouch on his vest, and walks back into the bar.
I love Trader Joe's so much, like with my
I know.
whole heart, my whole heart.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I think Esme is going to, after Packrat's disappearance, she is going to try to reverse engineer the parts of the augury, the room, this basically psychic room that she and Packrat built, and basically make it into, as much as it can be, like a base of operations. Like she is doing, psychic barriers so that nothing can detect anything inside. She is, adding in, wards, alarms, like anything she can do. And I think in, since you said that some of the white rats were going missing, I think at some point, as she is messing with this basically psychic conduit, I think she is going to tap up against Packrat at some point.
Okay, cool, good. Because I was like, I don't want to interrupt. I was like, can I help? So you reach out mentally, but on one of the screens in the room is where you get the response. Yes, Esme. Do you need assistance?
And she just thinks, that would be lovely.
We are here to help. What do you need?
And she is going to start outlining like this list of like modifications and things that she needs. And then on the last thing on the list is, if you are in charge of the ship, send a comm to reach out to my sister. because Esme does have a twin sister who split off from her, from her swarm, and say that I need her help.
Consider it done.
And then Ash, on the other hand, is, I think, she is spending most of her time either at the bar or with Ian. She is like, she's getting a little anxious because she is, she does not have a mission right now. She knows vaguely they're working towards something, but she doesn't, there's nothing to go fight, and there's no one to protect. And so she is commiserating with Gerrat until someone comes and gets her.
All right. Yeah, Garrett is happy to indulge in the commiserating. I think there's on one of the walls of Garrett's bar, the memorial statue for Nibbles has been moved over into Garrett's bar. JD.
Right, JD.
So I will say Hayden's epilogue has been one of the hardest for me to figure out, and I think it's because Hayden is feeling pretty lost. And so what I think we see from them is a bit of a montage, of course, of them supporting their brother through all of the procedures that he is undergoing, and like doing their best to keep a stiff upper lip through all of that. They were definitely sobbing at Nibble's memorial. That's part of why they didn't say anything, because they could not stop crying. And they've really been struggling with what to do with processing everything that happened on the interloper ship, and really everything that happened up until that point, because they logically knew how high the stakes were. They did not internalize how high the stakes were. So I would say for Hayden, there is a lot of time spent to themselves looking less peppy than usual. But I think near the end of this time, probably around the point where Hank has gone through physical therapy and is starting to do better and connect with his body in a way he hasn't been able to before, we see Hayden alone. And for the first time in many weeks, Hayden sings. By himself, pretty quietly still, but he sings. As Q glares daggers at me.
Sorry, that was excited glaring. I was like, let's fucking go.
Although now my mind is going a blank on every single song that I have ever known in my entire life.
Of course.
But it's probably Elton John. That was his role model. Conversely, for Ian, he spends most of his time, well, actually by himself a fair amount when he is not with Ash. There is a lot of sketches on paper, there is a lot of diagrams, there is a lot of all of that being steadily moved into the augury room, where it can be there and protected. But nothing that looks fully complete. It's all kind of piecemeal at this stage. Until the night where each of you receive a rat from Ian's swarm. This, of course, not including Pack Rat, since they are in the walls.
They are the shit.
Naming the time and naming the place. That night, 9 o'clock, the augury room. And when each of you walk in, the room is absolutely covered in everything that Ian has been compiling. It is all laid out. It probably doesn't make sense at first glance because there is a lot of it to take in. And Ian just looks at the other 6 of you and says, "All right, who's ready to do some crime?"
And I think that's where it's gonna transition to a still shot, and it's just the silhouette of the six of you in the room, silhouetted, backlit, and we see individual little rats just sticking out of vents or just popping out of the wall. Maybe one scurried up on top of the table, and the camera will move in over everybody's shoulder and then pan down to a blueprint of the GDG spaceship. And it is clearly details for an upcoming heist. JD, do you have an operation title for this heist?
I do not, but I will take any suggestions people want to throw out.
The Retalian job.
I love
That
it.
was cute.
All right.
I will take that.
I love it so much.
I feel like we need to move away from the cheese puns because those were the mission briefings.
Sure.
So
Thank you.
we
And
needed something
speciesist.
new.
Right.
Yes.
And they
Really?
were
'Cause
speciesist.
my other pitch was the Thomas Crown Gruyere.
Which is very good. Very good.
Very good. Oh.
So at the top of this heist plan, we see the Retalian job. And I think that is when the sepia is going to build and build until we fade to black. And that is going to be the end of Cyberrats Corpo Rat Shills. And we will see in the future, it pops up the end. Or is it? And we will see in the future if question mark, I like that better. The question mark just fades in at the end of the end. We will see later if we can make the Retalian job an actual one-shot. Whether we play in Cyberrats again, whether we bring another system into it, we'll see if we can play out the heist of the GDG spaceship. But that was good fun. That was a great time. Thank you everybody involved, audience and cast, for that nice little moving tribute to everybody. I like having these epilogues, and anytime there is a real meaningful death in a character group, I like to make it more meaningful and have some sort of something happen, whether it's a funeral, a memorial, just hanging around pouring drinks at a bar, whatever it may be. So I hope that was a good time for all of you. I hope you had fun with this series.
So much fun.
That's
a great time.
That's it. That's the end. Question mark. So for moving on now, because we're only an hour into this, we still have plenty of time. We're gonna drop into our review and analysis of Cyberrats as a whole. Let me actually just start with exactly that, and then we can get into the proper review and analysis. But just the question I like to ask most and dread most at the end of a campaign is simply, and you guys have already answered this more or less, Did you all enjoy it? Did you all have a good time? Did this live up to your expectations?
No, hated it. Hated every second of it. How
Yeah.
dare you make me go through all of that? It was fantastic, Jack. Jeez. We're all emotional terrorists.
Yep.
Oh, fantastic.
Quality role playing. Yes, very
Absolutely.
much.
Absolutely.
And thank you for supporting that, Jack. Like, I know
Mhm.
you realized from session 0 that was something we all were going to lean heavily into,
Mhm.
and it was really wonderful to have that space to let these characters become fully fleshed characters.
Yeah,
I'm
absolutely.
I'm really glad you guys went as hard with that as you did. I'm really glad I tried to get as much roleplay into this game as we could. A lot of that was just simply trying to cram as much as we could into the pacing because we only have so long. That's usually my biggest complaint, if you can even call it a complaint. I just wish we had time for more. I'm a big fan of long format games. I'm used to like home games of 4 to 6 hours that span whole years. But I do love these miniseries. They're always good fun. And it means we get a definitive open and closed slice of a story. There's a beginning, there's a middle, there's an end. You can see progression. It ends with a meaningful ending, as opposed to those games that just go on for 3.5 years and then kind of fizzle out. So I really like these miniseries. You guys did such an amazing job making your characters unique in ways that were, of course, in line with the game. You had very unique characters individually built around the game, but on top of that, very unique characters, very nuanced and fleshed out characters. Uh, I don't want to say in spite of the game, but in rounding out, providing a backdrop of roleplay to a game that, as Lumen is, very heavy into the combat and tactics side of things.
Mhm.
So let me throw it back to, well, all of you guys, cast and audience. Again, if you guys have any questions about the game, about the show, about the story, about the characters, about how anything works, now's the time to ask questions. But we're otherwise just going to go into looking at the game and talking about what sort of features work best for different groups or what have you. So if you caught the learning how to play episode very beginning, before we even did the first demo play episode, you know, I like to break down games when I do the RPGs uncovered thing. I like to break them down into rules, tools, and themes, and you can go back and watch that. I'm hoping that throughout this demo play that you have a fairly good understanding of the rules. I think it was a good demo play. I think we did a good job of exploring and demonstrating as much of those rules as we could. I will leave that up to you guys. I'd love to hear what you think, whether you would have liked more demonstration of various things, whether it got a little heavy and dragged in places. But we will be dropping more bite-sized tutorials in the future. I promise. They are on their way out. But let's actually drop into a discussion of the gameplay, and I'll lump rules and tools together. But let's start with themes and the setting and the feel of the gameplay, because I think when you're, and everybody's different, when you look at a game that you are interested in playing, or when you go out and search for games that you might be interested in playing, where do you start? Do you start at the setting? Do you start at what type of dice do they use? Do you start at what genre it is, fantasy or modern or sci-fi? And a lot of different people start in different places.
Hmm. I I don't really care what the dice system is, as long as I'm not like doing long division
Right.
to figure out what it is that I have to do.
Mhm.
I don't really mind it. So it really is just the theme, like I guess the genre, as long as it matches for what we're going for. I guess really it's just setting. There you go.
Hmm.
Setting is what I go for first. Um, that's what I'm looking for in a game. That particular itch that needs
Mm.
scratching. Really
The
depends.
vibes.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
vibes.
Mhm.
The vibes
Yeah.
must be in sync, like truly. Uh, but other than that, as long as the vibes are right, I'm down for whatever. And
Do any of you approach it in the opposite angle?
The vibes are what attracts me to a game, definitely. But I have found um moments where it's like uh yeah, if I'm like the vibes can be really good, but if I play the game and like the rules don't mesh with
Mm-hmm.
me, I
right,
can be like, like
yeah,
I have found that it is a lot like more difficult for me to play like long-term powered by the apocalypse games. And there are plenty of powered by the apocalypse games that I love the vibes of, you
Hmm.
know? Um so yeah, it's like the vibes are definitely the like thing that draw me to a game, but it's really the rules that make me stick around.
Right. Of course, yeah. A game, I mean, needs to be interesting, and it also needs to be playable in an enjoyable way. So let's dive into that a little bit and actually take a look at the gameplay, the feel of it, the gameplay as we are looking through like vibes as opposed to the mechanics of it. We'll get to mechanics in a bit, but as far as the actual
Mhm.
feel of the gameplay, when looking at a game, and I tried to break this down into a number of different spectrums, I think one thing we can say about Cyberrats is that if you're looking at this from a combat versus a roleplay heavy sort of game, I think inherently, at least based in the Lumen side of the rules, this is going to fall a lot more heavily on the combat side of things. Now, I hope we've seen that we
Mhm.
can inject a lot of roleplay in there, but as far as the way the game is designed, or at least shown on paper, the way the rules emphasize progression through the gameplay loop seems to emphasize more combat and more tactical choices than necessarily like a slice of life um, relationship building type of gameplay. So that's the first vibe. If you like a lot of combat, if you
Mhm.
like tactical decisions, and if you like building interesting characters that have different moves and work off of each other, we saw a lot of really interesting like combo exploits and whatnot. That is what you get from this game.
Ew.
But Cyberrats really does feel like I mean it has that sort of XCOM simulator feel. Uh,
mhm,
it's built very much the same way, and you can just like an XCOM, you can give all of your soldiers different backgrounds, and you can headcanon into different things. But there's not necessarily rules for that. Except, Alex, I do know in Briny Bastards you're coming out with a lot more expanded rule sets that might dip into some of
Right.
those things.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, even just relationships is something that we're adding in Briny Bastards, which is something that if we had in this group, I think that people would have just gone absolutely wild.
Hmm.
Feral.
Like, I mean, Ian was everyone's confidant, and we actually have a rule for confidants in the
Yo,
That's
Nice.
so
expansion. So
cool.
that's
Oh,
so
we love
good.
to see it.
uh,
that actually was hard at one point because I forgot that this wasn't using that, and I was like, "Oh, Ian, you can use the." Oh no, you don't have that.
Yep. Yeah,
So
we were playing
good.
without the expansion, but going forward, once it's done playtesting, once it releases, I think it's going to be a fantastic addition to this system.
Thank you. Yeah, I just cut out the new version of it this morning, so yeah,
Nice.
lots of great feedback there.
So another spectrum we can look at as far as gameplay vibes. What do we want to do next? Let's say tactical versus abstract, because if we're talking about a combat heavy game, there's kind of two camps of combat, and I'm sure there's more of them, but I'm going to cut it 50-50 down the line there. There is the near wargamer style of like 3.5 Pathfinder 1, where you have the 5x5 grid. It's all mapped out. You have to worry about exact distances. You have your tokens on the board. You have different height elevations. You have all of these tactical considerations. You have floating variables. You have if you're up here and they're down there, or if you're 10 meters outside of your minimum range band, then you get this negative. If you're 20 meters outside of your range band, you get this negative. So there's combat that is very sort of simulationist, very heavy grid-based tactical, and then there's more abstracted, and I think Cyberrats definitely falls very heavily towards that more abstracted line, where the range bands are abstracted. I mean, it says right in the book, there's close, near, and far, and as we've seen just throughout the demo play, those aren't necessarily nailed down with any measurements involved. I've had near distances that are like from here to the other side of a decent cafeteria, but I've also had other distances where that would be far range, or depending on your movement and where you are, like on the spaceship, I made close range fairly broad. So the abstracting distance and abstracting relation to each other is it's a very interesting way. I think this is probably the first game that I could say was very tactically based, but abstracted in that way. I think it allows for a lot of freeform narrative cinematic action that you wouldn't otherwise get if you're so bogged down in, oh, sorry, you're 5 feet away from optimal range here.
Right.
But at the same time, you do have to have a little bit of that strategy. Oh, if I move into close range, well, there's 5 other people here that all enemies that thrive on close combat, or stuff like that. Or we saw a lot with Esme's character. Where is the best place to drop this gravity bomb?
Yeah, and also, how can I get as many people close to me
Right.
as possible so I can go yeet.
Right. So
yeah, I really liked the close near range, like the close near far range bands. I'm like sitting here thinking in my head like how you could do like a simple chart, be like, these guys are here, these guys are close, these guys are near, these guys are far. It falls apart when you move. When you move. But that, I think that would be like the only thing, just because in the heat of battle, it can get difficult to tell which ones are where, when you don't have like the physicals of them. But I think Jack, you handled that very, very well, because you
I'm
were
glad you
throwing a
think
lot
so.
of dudes at us. You were throwing a lot of dudes at us, and I don't ever remember a point when I was like, but no, I thought they were, and they were. No, it was like, no, this all
Although I
tracks.
did have to ask like every turn.
Of course,
Okay.
of course. Double check it. But listen, we were doing a lot, especially later on, like in the higher ups.
Yeah.
We were doing some dumb shit.
Yeah.
And I think once you
was...
get a high enough level, you're doing like in a turn, you're doing so much that you have to be just like, okay, what is the maximum amount I can get out of this turn, so that we roll drops at the end of this turn and don't die?
Correct.
Right.
That was an important thing. But there's a whole lot of balancing both on our end and on like the DM's end, because we're like, okay, we need to get to those drops, because if we don't, someone may die or somebody's just gonna be out of juice.
It was interesting that after once you reach a certain level, it became like the killing enemies remained sort of the same consistent like importance, but it ended up being like less about getting rid of them and more about they give you resources. When they die, they explode into HP, and we need that HP.
Yes. hmm it was very much so like okay, narratively, killing them important. Mechanically, I need the boost. Like, I gotta make sure I stay as optimal as possible. Otherwise, I'm just gonna be like, I'm here. I'm here this round. That's it. I'm not going nowhere. Like,
I'm gonna walk. You
No.
want me to walk?
I'm gonna
With my
saunter.
legs?
I'm gonna stroll casually.
Yeah, so
Um,
even without getting down to like grid-based tactics, there is a lot of abstract tactics that you need to keep in mind. Managing resources is a huge part of this game, and keeping a general understanding of where you are in relation to others is very important. And I will say, I learned very quickly as a GM, you have to take notes about where everybody is at. I know in the book it says to stay away from a grid-based tactical battle map, but it also encourages sketching up little maps, and I've shared some of those on Ko-Fi. I've shared all of those on our Ko-Fi account. So anybody who has been following along on the GM side of things, I've dropped a number of different maps, and some of them you can see have a lot more erase marks on them than others. Specifically, Operation Queso Caper, and I doubt this is going to come through well.
no,
No,
it's
just
all
getting blurry.
blurry.
Yeah. But for those of you following along on Ko-Fi, yeah, those maps are up there. But I know you guys were all over the place on that map, so I was jotting down little E for Esme over here. We have Hank and Hayden were both there, so I couldn't just use H's, so I used Q and JD over here.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
I have S's for Slags over here, and ABPs over here. So it's very important to have a rough representation of the map you use, because you are going to need something to allow you to keep all of that together.
Ooh, I'm sure Hank and Trader Joe were a nightmare for you.
Yeah.
Just moving
I'm
all of
so
the time.
sorry.
Yep.
I'm so sorry, and also not at all.
Oh, especially during the exterior UFO fight. When who was that? Was that Freighter Joe who spent like a dozen biotech just zipping back and forth with 3D?
Yeah.
That was incredible, Alex. Like,
That was so
amazing.
good. That was so good. Finding the synergy in this game, I think, was one of my favorite parts.
I'm really glad that Alex has said pretty early on, like, oh yeah, movement is important, like, that's the secret. And it's like, I think past a certain point, like, if you used an action to walk, you were wasting an action.
Yep. Getting oomph changed the day. It changed my whole life for Pack Rat.
So good. I mean, it got to the point that, because I could shoot twice in an action with Ash and had oomph, it was like, it is literally better for me to fire at random enemies that I know I won't do anything to, because it will propel me across the battlefield faster.
Yep.
So I think this is a great segue into some other different spectrums we can look at this at. As far as rules, we'll spread briefly into rules. an easy spectrum there is crunchy versus light, and I think this is definitely a lighter system. This is not a crunchy system. If like 1 was super light and 5 was super crunchy, I'd give this about a 2, and I only give it a 2 as opposed to like full super light, because there are occasionally different floating variables that you have to worry about. Like Trisha, when we brought Trisha along, we had to remind ourselves, okay, we get +1 cyber, or some of the battlefield map tags that would apply bonuses or negatives, or the keen trait. So there are a number of things that you do have to stop and consider. Especially that keen trait. We had to get in the mindset of, you guys had to get in the mindset of stopping. Hey, do I need to apply keen? Because there are considerations when you roll that you need to have some information ahead of time.
We
So-
hate Keen. We hate Keen,
Keen was a
so
big
much.
one. Yeah,
You do.
keen was a big one. So there is some floating variables that you need to keep track of, but I think that's as easy as just having a little piece of scratch paper nearby. You don't need to worry about all kinds of fancy arithmetic like you do in other games. And even those floating variables, they are minor, and they're usually just like one thing. You have an assistant with you. Well, that's going to provide a bonus, or you are on a map and that provides a bonus. It doesn't get down into like 3.5 Pathfinder levels where I got a +3 from this and a +2 from that and a -1 from this and a +5 from that, all in one stat that you have to keep track of.
I will say, kind of.
Kind of, because then there's
Kind of.
tags.
Correct.
Mhm.
So you
I
were
was just
giving
getting
it a
that.
2, and I'm like,
Yep.
I'll give you maybe a 2.5.
Yeah.
I am
Cause-
very sorry for Ash.
For
being
Lucretia?
the way
Yeah, fuck
she
that gun.
was.
Incredible, Aaron.
I was
Lucretia was great, and I don't care.
you were very
We stand.
fortunate in not rolling consequences with Ash, because I was looking for so many ways to take that gun because I was so done with it. No, it was great. But that does roll over to another way that we can talk about this. Q, you just said it. There are a lot of tags that you need to be
Yeah.
aware of, and I think this is a game that there's a fantastic glossary at the back of the book. Alex,
Yeah.
I love you so much for this, because this is a GM. It is such a blessing for a GM to have a concise single page of all the information you need. Oh, this has beam. All right, that's here it is. Targets one enemy at close, near, and far range. Oh, they're a robot. There it is. They blow up into pieces. It's all right there. I just need to turn my head. I highlighted the ones that came up most often, and there we go. So having that in the book was such a help.
That is
Thank
incredible.
you. I spend a lot of time running games, and I spend a lot of time making cheat sheets for games that I run. So when I make games, I tend to have a good idea of what I want to reference. So I'm glad you appreciated that.
Well, I do a lot of the same. One of the things that I usually do for RPGs Uncovered is also make some cheat sheets available if the game needs it. And this is a game where I definitely say you need them, but you did that work for me. There's already a glossary. There's already a quick cheat sheet of the enemy phase that I referenced every single enemy phase. So there's a lot of really useful stuff just built into the book to assist players and GMs. And I think that is very important, having those tools easily accessible to you, because it means that this was an interesting discussion yesterday on Days of Tales about accessibility in gaming, how some people feel like they are pressured to be able to do complicated math in their head without a calculator, or be pressured to know exactly what all of their features do at all times. And I'm like, no, don't worry about that. You should have the resources in front of you that you need and not feel bad about it. I could not run these games without the calculator pulled up, or without a glossary pulled up, or without all kinds of things that I use as a reference point.
Right.
So having those built into the actual book of the system is super helpful. But this is definitely a game where you are going to probably want those cheat sheets. You're going to want those tags listed.
Yeah. because it's like, especially when you're in the middle of an action and you're like, the panic sets in.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, I got a bunch of shit on. I don't know what it does. Brutal. It does a thing, I think.
Yep.
So it's good to have that to fall back on, just for ease's sake, just to help out. Also love that a lot of like the problems that you'll run into when it comes to enemies are addressed in tags if you buy them. Like so it was definitely, you had to be tactical both in the combats, like in the missions, and also outside of it,
Mm-hmm.
because you had to be real careful with how you spent your script.
Yes.
Like I'm gonna be real honest. Packrat also should have been a little beefier, but I've spent a full 7 script on getting their debt down because, again, we commit to the bit.
Yeah.
And the bit is, I'm getting debt free. I swear, God.
Yeah. Yeah. It would have been really interesting if one of your characters managed to buy themselves out during, this heavily truncated campaign. It would have been interesting.
We were planning on it, but there were other things that we needed to buy.
Yep.
And like, while at once Packrat was very much so like, hey, yo, I'm out, they were also still very much so like, but we are together. So spent a lot of their script into helping others out or healing themselves, which is fine.
Yeah.
Fine. That injured shit, it's for the birds. Alex, I don't like it. Get it out of here.
Well,
We were
that's
playing on easy mode because we automatically had the,
Yeah.
the
Correct.
hospital.
Yeah.
Correct.
So that is a good segue into an interesting discussion about whether this is a super deadly sort of meat grinder game or how forgiving of a game it is. Because on paper, it looks super deadly. But in actual gameplay, I found that it really is more of a game of attrition. It's not possible to outright kill a character on a mission. They get injured, and then afterwards, there's really no reason to keep hitting them. Once you have the injured tag, they're already injured, unless the GM decides that they can take more damage and then just die, which I don't think is really in the spirit of the rules, at least until you get to the final mission. It means that your characters are fairly safe in the mission that they're in. But the deadliness comes from having to manage those injuries when you know you have secondary missions that you have to send them out on.
And it also depends on how forgiving the dice are.
Mhm.
Because
Correct.
if the dice on that secondary mission come up in a knockback
That's when you lose
space,
people.
That's
We
when
got
you
a-
lose people.
I think a couple people got healed by lucky secondary mission.
Yeah.
dice.
Yeah,
Mhm.
at least twice, I believe.
At least, yeah.
Chloe says, ask Nibbles how forgiving it is. Yeah, we went into this assuming more deaths than just one. These guys did real good.
Oh, for sure.
We all had backup characters. Like, we were told to have backup characters from the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was gonna have a brute with so many med packs. You get a med pack. You get a
Yep.
med pack.
I was
It's a-
just going to quote one of my co-creators on this game, but it looks like Boog actually made his way to the chat.
Yeah, hi, Boog.
But yeah, he pointed out, and again, I was going to quote him on this, but he did it for himself, that like later on, you're most likely to die by getting injured and being unable to afford the clinic.
Mm-hmm.
Like that is the most likely way that this ends for you,
Mhm.
not being taken down.
Which
in
is a
combat.
very
The real
very
thing.
relevant
we saw that.
satire.
Yeah.
We very much saw that because I knew this was going to be a difficult game. I gave you the clinic ahead of time. Did skew the actual demo play portion of it because you guys used that clinic pretty heavily from the start.
We
So
had
though
to.
you had to,
We had to.
yeah,
Yeah,
But-
and eventually we were like pitching in.
yeah, for each other.
Correct.
We
Yeah.
were
Because it
having
costs so much.
GoFundMe campaigns.
Yeah,
There was a mission where we collectively put 21
Yep.
script
Yep.
into
Just before the
uninjuring
final.
people after one
Yeah.
mission.
yep.
Yep.
Yeah. But what I was getting to there, you because I gave you the clinic early on and you were able to utilize it from the beginning, I think we saved a lot of those characters because of course, in the early game, because you don't have as many resources, when you don't have as many powers, you don't get all of those extra dice for the secondary roll. And if your characters are injured, or if you're only using interns, that's going to create a pretty small dice pool. But you were able to stay ahead of that and keep your characters pretty much all healthy with the clinic up until it started getting a little dicey towards the very end.
You mean like the mission right before the final
Yeah.
mission? Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Oh man. That 21 script could have gone a long way, my guy.
Yeah. So let's talk about that too, because this is a very resource heavy game, and I think that's where a good deal of the strategy of this comes from. You have a single resource script which is used to do everything, to upgrade your character in multiple different ways, to keep them healthy, to buy rooms for the rest of the ship, to buy gear. So you have this one resource that is really fairly limited, and I gave you guys a healthy handicap to keep you progressing throughout the entire story. But what was each of your takes on script spending strategies?
I think with both characters, I focused early on buying toys. For Esme, it was I got powers and upgraded powers. By the end, my beam cannon was dealing 6 damage and shredding.
Mhm.
And for Ash, obviously, I made the gun that victimized Jack personally. And I midway through the thing, there was one mission where I got hit, and I'm like, oh, I am almost down, and that was my first hit. And it's I should have been putting more into health and shard and soak.
Yeah. I didn't realize I was so low. I kind of did for Pack Rat because, again, not Pack Rat, for Hank, because, again, here for a good time, not a long time. So I wasn't particular. Don't give me that look. You knew what it was. That's what I said for session 0, JD. So I wasn't really worried about it until he needed to worry about it, because he then was like, oh, I guess I should probably stick around there, huh? But then we just kept spending on other people to not die. So I didn't actually, I upped his soak a little bit, but not that's right now. I upped his shard a little bit, but not his soak.
Yeah.
And that really screwed me up.
Yeah. Honestly, the fact that I took both of the soak passives for Esme, so I ended up having 4 soak without having to spend much. Was so useful, because it's just especially for reflect, because that was the big one, is if anything was any sort of damage coming back at you from hitting something, if it was above your amount of soak, then it hurt, because that was wearing down your shard.
Yeah.
That was actually one of the biggest complaints that we got from playtesters for the original game, is they wanted to choose whether to lose a shard or not. If you have 1 damage pinging in over your soak.
Yeah.
So there is a mechanic in Briny Bastards where if you upgrade your personal drone, you can choose not to spend a shard on a teensy little point of damage.
Okay.
Oh,
That's
but God,
interesting.
I don't want the enemies to have that. That is what I am afraid of.
That's just one way. That's just a one-way thing. Now,
Well, I mean, listen, I would hope so, because the enemies just auto hit, so get wrecked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had a really hard time. No, I realized very early on that I didn't pick the right armor. because I was like, ooh, barrier sounds good. And then I looked at barrier again. I was like, oh, not actually. That's not where it's at. Mm-mm. Barrier is useful really like one time. It's really helpful one time. And then you just kind of got to hope that you are beefy and can take more hits after that. But, we live and we learn. When I play this again, hopefully my characters will be better.
One thing that I actually had a question for you, Alex, is, well, I mean, you're the designer. How much, because none of us did it, how much use did people get out of all of the armor abilities that were like that happened when your barrier broke? Because I feel like you'd have to do like a specific build for that.
So that's a very funny question. But it's funny because I'm actually doubling down on that mechanic in the expansion. We have a pressurized keyword that is the first time you lose all of your barrier, you get to do a thing.
Okay.
So the answer is not quite as much as I wanted them to, so I'm giving more and more incentive.
Okay.
Yeah,
That
so
was
once again, tags are so important, and there really could be a fascinating discussion about enemy creation and usage and deployment. We could probably spend a lot of time just talking about that, but it really is. It really is one of those things where it's just as much of an art as it is a science. But it is interesting looking at all of your characters, especially as they progress towards the end. And I know for most of the game, it wasn't until this very last mission that I actually stopped and I looked at all of your characters' defenses and I went, okay, she has way too much shard, so I need some enemies that can shred. Or okay, that's a lot of that's a lot of shard, so I need to be able to plink that away. Or hey, I got too many enemies with Pierce, but Pierce goes through Soak, but not Barrier. So you kind of do need all three of those defenses addressed in some way. You can specialize in one or the other, but I think they're, and I think this is really just a matter of how, I don't want to say adversarial, but how tactical you are as a GM against your players, as to if you put out threats specifically designed to counter specifically what each of those characters specialized in. Because I think you may have realized during that final mission, I wasn't holding back anymore. I was finally shredding some of that soak for who was it, Ash or Esme? One of your characters, Esme's.
Esme.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know at one time I completely focused fire on Q because I had to just to pummel you down. Yeah. And it still didn't work.
Yeah, no, the drones were like, yeah.
Yep.
Oh no.
Yep.
Oh. Yeah. Also, you made the big bad not be hurt by anything but cyber. How dare you?
Hey, I didn't do that. That was all Alex.
What?
Oh yeah. You know what? Let's pull over actually. Let's pull over actually. Let's talk about it. Hey, bud. What the fuck?
So again, that came from players. People weren't using cyber, and they weren't well-rounded enough, so I wanted to punish them.
That's really interesting because I think so many of us used cyber.
Yeah. No, those were definitely like the highest stats for both of my characters.
We were very low on Sly in this group. We had a lot of Smash, we had a lot of Sliber, but not a lot of Sly, which I think was the problem with the Slags. Yeah, the glowing blue.
Yeah, compared a little bit. I mean, Packrat had 2, and I eventually upped their Cyber to 3, so they were pretty even. They only had a 1 in Smash because like that's not what they're here to do.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, like that was so fascinating because I was like, the big bad doesn't do Smash. Oh no.
Yep.
Oh no.
Yep.
That was another thing where it's like Esme probably could have just shot at it with her tiny pistol, but like
Mhm.
I had built at so much of Esme's stuff at that point for just doing combos so I can get as many drops as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And it's
Yeah.
like, oh wait, I should kill this boss too.
Yeah. I couldn't help with the boss.
Whoopsie.
There was no way for Hank to help with the boss because he
Mhm.
had a 0.
Mhm.
He had a nothing on
Big
Cyber. So
old goose egg.
big old goose egg, gang. So that was just really rough. So I was like, I'm gonna try and get the little guys, and then we got no drops. We
Yeah.
got no, we got
The-
none of
That was
Oh,
so
yeah,
the bridge
brutal.
team got
It was
so screwed.
bad.
8 pieces of weapon parts or whatever.
like I killed 8 cyborgs
Yep.
like in one shot,
Yep.
and he was just like, nope, none of them. I was like, oh no,
Yeah.
it's not looking good. I'm glad the second team got their mission done so quick.
Yeah.
That I am
Also-
so glad that you put like 15 robots in that room with me.
That was
That
that was
was
the one that I was
incredible.
going to talk about.
Because
Yes, that synergy.
I had literally after the very first mission I brought Ash on, I was like, oh cool, this mag bomb, like we haven't encountered any robots yet, but I'm sure there are gonna be a ton of robots. And so I'll get this mag bomb because it seems super useful against a crowd of robots. And then there were no crowds of robots on any mission that Ash went on.
Nope. But then we had the room full of. Oh, that was so good. And then you
That
were
was
like,
beautiful.
"Can you take them over?" I can. Yeah, no, that was one of those sick little synergistic combos that we just found. I was like,
But part of that is because, Jack, your range bands tend to be a little bigger than my own.
Mm.
But that was just such a fun moment.
Mm-hmm.
The mag bomb is just every robot on the field
I love it.
goes to the mag bomb.
It's so good.
That was so fun.
And I'm glad I prepared Hack on that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that one. Also, that data loss power.
Mhm.
10 out
Oh,
of 10.
that was
10 out of 10.
so like.
Because that came in handy.
Mhm.
So very useful. Because like we weren't getting biotech drops when we needed them. I was like, okay, well, I guess I'll just drain myself. That's fine.
It was Esme and Q were the like, okay, it's my turn. Please be patient.
Give me 1 second. I'm so sorry.
I am going to do these 15 moves, and okay, now go.
Right. Okay. Was that it? Did they die? No.
Did
Okay. I
anything
have one more thing. Oh.
Yeah, that's that did come up a few times, and if you spend a lot of your script bolstering your biotech, you really can go crazy for 1 or
Yeah.
2 rounds, and if you do,
Yeah.
missions really will only take 1 or 2 rounds. I think that's one of the biggest reasons that I tended to make maps larger than you usually do, Alex. I didn't remember you were saying that, because I felt like I needed to. I needed there to be some sort of stopgap for a mission to continue and have the tension build up and have there be an actual feeling of progression. Because you guys were just so good at, okay, I do this and 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 they're all gone, right? And yeah. But that's not super entertaining for anybody but the person doing it. So
Yeah.
You-
Well,
you-
you made it entertaining.
yeah.
If
You
there's
kept-
one thing if there's one thing, and I've said this before, but there's one thing I love about Lumen games, it's when you get to the level where you can just do sick ass combos all day.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There was a lot of good moments in there, and I love when we were all able to like set each other up,
Mm-hmm.
like uh Ian going just force lightning on people
Mm-hmm.
and getting through, or like somebody taking out their person shard and Ian going Zot and they're gone now.
It is a
like
very team tactics focused game.
yes, very much so.
I mean,
Very
even
much
just the movement, having 3v people
Mm-hmm.
in
Yeah.
a group
Oh yeah.
meant. We also found out that not having any 3v people in a group
Really
was
slows it down.
a lot harder.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, that
So
was rough.
I think that is something you need to keep in mind as a player, and especially as a GM, that it is very team tactics focused. So your players are going to have a lot of ways, especially as they proceed forward, to completely shut down what you are setting up here. Especially because the players pretty much always get to go first. They do all of their actions, and then if anything happens to be remaining, then they get to act. Which is one of the reasons I did the target rich environment tag on that final mission, because at that point you guys had just gotten so good at wiping out all of the field in any one given place.
It was the rat swarms. It was the rat swarms that did it for you.
Yeah.
And I
Which
refuse to apologize.
which is super exciting, and I love it, but that just means I need to find a different way to challenge you guys, and I do like that the game does provide ways to do that. But I do think at the end of the day, the favor is well in favor of the player's success, which is good. I think that is good.
And that's what I want. I mean, I
Mhm.
want the players. I say it's a game you're meant to lose, but like realistically, I want the players to win, and I want it to feel like a hard-earned victory.
Mm-hmm.
And it did 100%.
It absolutely was. Good lord.
I know the only thing I was particularly disappointed with was that you guys just obliterated bosses. Like, especially the custodian. You guys showed up. He decided he wasn't really feeling like talking. Then you just ripped him apart. He didn't get a turn, I don't think. I kind of forced a turn on him, and he stunned somebody and is getting set up to do something. Then you guys just completely obliterated them.
Yeah.
So I think
Once we were there up on him, that it was over. It was a wrap.
yeah.
and
That. Sorry, go ahead, Aaron.
oh, I was gonna say, and then when you brought basically a second one
Uh-huh.
down because we had obliterated that one, and I was just like, is she still standing in front of the open window? And you're just like, no, you cannot shoot her into a volcano.
Not without working for it.
And honestly, that issue of I'm laughing a lot because that issue of like, wait, people can just completely steamroll bosses. That's still something I deal with the expansion. And in fact, just this morning, I was having a conversation again with Boog about how I believe I finally fixed that problem to add some pacing to it.
All right.
Okay.
Because you can't stop. I mean, even Nibbles was doing like what 16 points of damage reliably,
Mm-hmm.
and you can't stop that. But I'm still learning, but I think that we have some fun tools for the expansion to slow that down.
I mean, I
At
would
one
say
point, you did like 32, which is wild. It's a wild number.
Yeah, that was ridiculous.
I mean, when it got to a certain point, I think at the Valdivian story mission and the ones afterwards, that's when I was looking at all of the enemies we have here, and I wasn't looking at anything except for how much shard they have. Because at that point, soak doesn't matter, barrier doesn't matter, HP certainly doesn't matter. Their ability to survive the amount of rounds that they're actually going to be a threat is directly related to how much shard they have.
Yep.
And I know towards the end there, I was playing around with some things there, finding new ways to up the threat level to help bolster those numbers a little bit, I took a little bit of artistic liberty with Mother and the fact that she was all over the ship and shared defense pools between both of those encounters. But as far as enemies are concerned, Shard is really about the only thing that matters once you get to a certain point.
We've got a new we have Staunch coming. That's your preview.
Ooh,
What the
all
fuck?
right.
What the fuck?
Okay.
Staunch is a tag that will limit how many points. And again, full credit to Boog for the name. I was calling it capped. But it will limit the amount of health an enemy is allowed to lose from one single damage source.
Interesting.
Oh,
Nice.
no.
Nice.
Oh no.
I hate it.
I hate that a lot, actually. No.
Actually, I love it because both Esme and Ash suffered because they just did iterations of damage as opposed to 16 at once.
Yeah.
So
I'm a big fan.
I am not, because Hank is like, yeah, yeet. We go hacker slash snicker snack, if you will.
I will.
And
I will always.
Thank you. And that guy, that dude's gone. But oh no,
So-
that could be bad.
I would like to give my enemy MVP medal to the mech, because the mech is the most terrifying creature on all three of these faction sheets. It is insane. 3 shard off the base does a ton of damage up close, and it has the shielded, reflect, and resilient tag.
Yeah.
So you do damage, you take damage, and it gains barrier.
Yeah.
It's insane, and if you are not
It's
prepared
real.
for that, to break through the barrier and resilience with lethal, the mech is incredibly dangerous, and we saw some of that with reflect, getting hit back with half of the amount of damage that you do. If Nibbles ran up with a 32 damage on a mech, he would have been obliterated.
Yeah.
At least until you're done trading shard.
Hank kept going, hey, die. And everybody was like, hey, stop doing that.
Stop doing that, please. We like
Stop.
you.
Please, yes.
It's
Yeah,
it's
that-
like bonk, ow, bonk, ow.
That first cheese cutter mission, I think the biggest MVP damage dealing detrimental award also goes to Hank. I think you willfully took on and dished out more damage to yourself than I was able to do with any of the enemies.
Regularly.
Yep.
That's his MO.
Yep.
Like, that's why I made him have a sword. He's going in ready to do some damage, baby.
Mhm.
Like yeah, no, that was the whole plan. Again, here for a good time, not a long time.
Yeah.
But he was here for both. Stop shaking your head at me.
It worked out. It worked out.
He lived.
So I think we talked a real good amount on the various gameplay spectrums that we have here. Another one I have here is simulator versus bombastic. This is definitely a bombastic game. I don't think we even really need to discuss that. There is nothing simulationist about this. I mean, Oomph alone is just the definition picture of bombastic gameplay. And then the only other one that I would say is kind of in contention is whether this is an episodic game or a campaign game, because it kind of feels to me like that old school Star Trek of the Next Generation era, where every individual episode, every individual mission is very episodic. You start out full health, unless of course you were injured. There's some things that roll over, but you start out in a pretty stable place. You know exactly what you're doing. You go and do it. You come back. You have the performance review, rinse and repeat. It's all very episodically contained, but it also has built in those 3 key story missions that keep things moving forward. So it has a very episodic feel to it, but it is based very heavily around a campaign. So I would say if you're looking for a game for a series of more or less unrelated one-shots. You can do it with Cyberrats, but it's not necessarily built into the expected gameplay loop that you get with the rule set. And
Right.
you kind of lose some of that if you're only playing one-shots, because like I said, it's a game where the danger really comes from attrition and resource management as you continue on throughout the gameplay. So
Right.
it really is more of a campaign, a longer format sort of campaign game, but you can experience it in a very episodic manner.
Yeah, and I think one of the best parts about this game is seeing the growth. Like, because you
Yeah.
start with basically nothing. Like, like
Mhm.
you got a hope in one hand, a sword or a gun in the other.
Hmm.
Like,
Yeah.
so seeing your character develop and grow, I think is one of the most fascinating parts of that. So just having it be like a one shot, I don't really see that unless it's like one of those like all day one shots. Like this is all we're doing for the
Yep.
rest of the like this today. This is what we're doing, maybe. But I think no, this is definitely in that sweet spot between episodic and campaign.
Hmm.
Like it is short enough where it's not going to be like you can do years on this. I wouldn't want you to. That's a lot, you know. But
Mm.
um, you definitely have, you know, your acts, you know,
Hmm.
1, 2, 3, and then close. Yeah, no, this is definitely, like I said, in that sweet spot of
Hmm.
the two.
Yeah, I think we really truncated the campaign. I don't think to necessarily detrimental result as far as the demo play. I think we got a lot of the key demonstration that we need out of a Cyberrats game from this. But I would say I wouldn't want to do a game any shorter than this. I think like an 8 to 10 episode, at least the way we did it, which was what, 16 to 20 or so missions total. Um, is that how math works? 2 times 8 is 16. Yeah, somewhere around
Yes.
there. It works out pretty well. I think ideally we would have gone at least half as much longer, so like a 12 to like 15 session sort of deal. And I think then you would have gotten the full you need a certain number of successful missions before you can do each story mission. And
Hmm.
as Alex said before, the more missions you go on, the more injuries build up, the more you're not able to pay them off, the more you have to send injured operatives off on secondary missions, the more stressful that gets, the more operatives that might die on unsuccessful secondary missions. So
But
I
it's also more missions to get script. So
yes,
like
Yeah.
it's in between.
right,
Yeah.
right. I really gave you guys a big handicap. I think overall you guys ended up with as much script as you would have gotten from doing each of those missions individually. You just got it all in big chunks, um,
Yeah. Yeah.
which has its ups
Yeah.
and downs. But it was the only way I could see squeezing a whole campaign into our
Yeah.
schedule.
Typically, like the intent was that you could run a campaign in about 12 sessions.
Hmm.
12 to 15 sessions was the goal. And again, your missions tend to be a little bigger than my own.
Hmm.
But I don't feel like we were too far behind that. Anyway, because basically the missions that you let us go on, those final missions, those typically unlock after we fight each one 3 times.
Hmm.
And I don't think that by the end we had done that for most factions.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, thereabouts, yeah.
Yeah.
But the first one we definitely cheesed on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And even Valdivian, I think we might have gone to Valdivian like maybe one mission early, but it worked out with the pacing and the story that we had. Other than that, I think the only one we haven't talked about as far as gameplay wise would be low prep versus high prep, and this is definitely a low prep game. This is a super
Yeah.
low prep game. I think again, if 1 is ultra low prep and 5 is ultra high prep, I would give this about a 2, because you do want to have notes as a GM as far as which enemies you're using and how many you plan on throwing out each round, you're going to want a map, especially on more complex maps. And again, you don't need and are encouraged not to use a tactical battle map. But I know on some missions I had like full little sketched out maps, which I know you can't see on here. Well, actually, if I do it like this, you can kind of make something out.
Oh, hey, you
Get
kind of
up
see.
there
Hey,
with it. Yeah, there we
you
go.
go in slow, you can see it.
Yeah.
Nice.
But I know for the Valdivian base, there's my Valdivian map. I just had it on an index card somewhere. I have all of these index cards. I'm not going to worry about it. But actually, this is the layout of the mothership. It's just I need to get up there with it. You can't make it out. It's chicken scratch anyway. I'm the only one who can read it. But it has those lists of corridors. So you proceed, then you have to get through either patrols or locked doors. You go further, you got the grav lift or the transport bay. So when it says map, you can really make just sort of like a bullet point outline sort of progression of how you want things to go, or you can make a whole rough sketch of the area, which helps, you can erase where people are and place them and have a more concrete understanding of the relations that everybody is in, because it can get complicated, especially when you have three-dimensional maps. which I started doing to try to combat the beam weapons and arc weapons that I gave you guys. 'Cause, man, that was a huge power boost.
Yes, it was.
Yes.
And I thank you for that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No, it was a bombastic game. I was leaning into that, giving you guys cool toys to play with.
Yeah. I like the shiny toys.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so setting and tone, this is definitely a sci-fi game, a sci-fi sort of cyberpunk, cyber complacency, near-ish modern sort of game. It's not a historically accurate game. It's not fantasy. It is very much sci-fi, cyberpunk, cyber complacency sort of thing. It has a built-in setting. I don't think you can really run Cyberrats ignoring the setting, because the story missions directly involve what is going on. So it's not a system, not a setting agnostic resource that you can use. If you're playing Cyberrats, you are playing the game of Cyberrats, not just using the system of Cyberrats. Though, of course, there are many other different Lumen systems out there if you are looking to do other things with it. But the setting is very thoroughly baked in. And I would say, as far as tone, I also have serious versus silly. I think this is definitely just like bombastic. It is definitely on the more silly side, which I love. It feels like Saturday morning cartoons. I try to ground that a little bit with the tension and the drama, and the suspense. But it definitely is a bombastic sort of silly style game. And then there's the question of optimistic versus cynical, and that is that interesting play between cyberpunk and cyber complacency that we did tackle pretty well in this demo play. We started off with a vibe of, yeah, it's cyber complacency and we understand, and Hank was like, nah, fuck that.
It's sir, Pack Rat. It was definitely Pack Rat.
It was more Pack Rat,
yeah, it's fine. Pack Rat was like, no.
It just, every single person just talking back to director Himalaya was just it's exactly what I needed.
Yeah,
I loved it.
Yeah,
Loved it.
And I gotta tell you, Jack, like we had already, like, I know I had kind of already started it with Pack Rat being like, I'm gonna buy my debt down. I don't love that. But then it was just reinforced with how you play director Himalaya, which I loved. I love when I can just like sit and like hate a character.
Mm-hmm.
Like when I'm feeling it, I'm like, oh yeah, fuck that bitch. Like it's really good. Yeah.
I'm good at making my players hate my NPCs. I have that skill down.
Himalaya was great. She was the worst, and thus she was great.
Well, you can ask Muse in the chat to talk about Princess Becca.
Oh, I already know.
I love was how Esme made her turn
Uh-huh.
because of
Yeah.
Dorothea and
I
Leia.
was
I thought that was just
planning-
beautiful.
I
It's
was
so good.
planning to play Esme because I knew the concept of Cyberrats was not necessarily like like Boog said in the chat, like cyber gross, like
Mm.
it's not cyberpunk necessarily. And so I wanted Esme to be sort of like this embodiment of this.
Mhm.
But it was like so much of you, like it's one of those things that there were so many of you like putting out these arguments and like pushing back against it so much. It's like I can't defend like this in real life. I can't like do this as improv. And so it's like I gotta bring this to a head so that I can like push Esme over the edge.
Nice, nice. Yeah, towards that last interaction, I was seeing that was kind of the trend everyone was going by, and that final interaction, I think I correctly assumed that that would either completely push you over the edge, and you would be no, screw the GDG, we're gonna do something radical towards the end here, or it would have turned into the Esme villain arc if I was able to make a compelling argument. But I love that it turned out the other way. Speaking of turning and shifting and compelling arguments, Mother at the end there with I believe that was Esme 2 on the bridge.
It was Esme.
Yeah. Mother's arguments. I feel like I was starting to poke into the three of you. Q would I knew Q was gonna be the one that was not having it.
No.
But I feel
Absolutely
like Mother was worming her tendrils into your brain, and then you decided you were thirsty, Esme.
I was out of biotech and I need biotech.
That was an
Oh.
impeccable decision. That was so good. I was just like, please don't let this happen. But I know this is going to happen.
This is gonna happen. It's happening. It's happening right now in front of us. What are we gonna do?
I was making dice roll, and it turned out like fine, but I was making high-low dice rolls of like, okay, is she going to attack the enemies or is she going to just fucking take out her gun and shoot Hank?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that would have been rough too.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even want to envision that.
Mm-mm.
I thoroughly appreciate that. I know there is a lot of difficulty in having sort of mind control effects. That's come up a number of times in my groups for various reasons. How mind control effects in other games, no matter how direct or indirect they may be, can really be viewed as taking some or all of the agency away from a player, depending on how strict that mind control is. Things like in D&D when you have like dominate person or even basic charm spells. But I've gotten to the point where I do like to ask consent for my players, like, hey, I'm going to be messing with your mind. Is that okay? I'd appreciate you going with it, but if you're not comfortable with it, we can work a way out. So I really appreciate Aaron, that you really did go for that. I appreciate the high-low rolls. Would have been interesting if it went a different way. Could have been interesting if you gave into it for like the first one or two things. Maybe somebody would have had to talk you out of it. But just doing the high-low rolls and just relying on the dice, I think that's a great way to do it, because the dice know the story they want to tell. That's what I always say. My dice know the story better than I do. But that is something I did want to point out, that if you are using mechanics that take or at least shape agency away or in a specific direction for a player, that you probably should make that a conversation rather than a dictation. So thank you for that. I think that went really well.
Yeah, just that moment of panic of being like, we just like, she's already gone from under one boss, now she's looking for another.
Yep.
No.
I was having so much
No.
fun with Barbatus. I had so much fun with
Oh,
Barbatus.
Barbatus was great. Chloe's already told me that they plan on using the "you're beautiful" for something. I don't know, and
Hmm.
I'm already scared. It's fine. Um, Such a great. I really thought we were gonna have more of a fight from him, and so when you were just like, "Yeah, no, you cut him in half," I was like, "Oh no."
Yeah. So I actually had that. I actually jotted that note down as soon as you were like, "Hold up, Q. How do you feel about being the one to cleave the friendly Barbatus asunder?" That was all you, man.
Sure was. So here's the thing. Um, Hank doesn't feel any type of way about that. You want to know why?
Mm.
Because uh, no gods, no masters. You know, you know what I mean? Uh, and like we were just gonna be trading one boss for another, and I'm not looking to do that anymore. Um, so Hank doesn't feel the way. I felt bad because
Mm.
I was like, oh no, he was just a social character. Got it. Got
Yep.
it.
Yep.
Cool.
He had no stats. He was there to pitch you guys an argument, and I was legitimately curious where 3 out of 4 of you were going to take that. I know Q, you were having none of it, but I thought
No,
just maybe I could turn enough of the party to make this an even more difficult, detrimental engagement. How close did
because
I get?
Hayden went good boy there.
Uh
Like
huh.
they went good boy. Like, yeah, really?
Yep.
Yeah, we don't want to fight. I was like, think about it. Think about it for like 3 more seconds.
So let me ask, how did I do there? How close were we? If Q didn't just cut him up, where was that going?
Probably nowhere good. Probably yeah, nowhere good. I think he probably could have gotten. I think it would have been a little hard because of Hank's influence. Because Hayden does, trust Hank more than anyone else, but they were definitely tempted. They
Yeah,
were definitely tempted.
yeah, because it was, he was really good at making subservience look like peace.
Hmm. And that's all Hayden
Hmm.
wanted. That's all
Yep,
Hayden
so
wanted.
yep, it was subservience dressed up like freedom.
Yeah.
And no.
We're just a big happy family here, right, Mother?
mm, yeah, no, see, absolutely not. Because, like, yeah, we're just basically a family here. That is corporate talk for cult and lies.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was like I think it was for Esme, it was like Mother was the most persuasive, but she was annoyed by Barbatus.
Mm.
Esme likes a strong female role model.
Yes.
Even when it's a
Obviously.
bad one.
Yes.
Even when it's a ship-wide blubberous tentacle monster.
Exactly.
Any
Also,
any any port in a storm.
the milk was good, which that was, oh god, when you were like, yeah, let me just go ahead and have a little sippy sip.
Yeah.
I was like, no, don't do that. Don't drink the Kool-Aid. Don't drink
Yeah.
the Kool-Aid. And then she
Literally
did. And I was
drank the
like, oh.
Kool-Aid. Yep.
Yeah.
Loved it. Loved it.
I gotta say, if Hayden had gone with that, oh no. If Hayden had been like, yeah, no, this is a good idea, that would have been bad for
Yeah.
Hank because there would have been no fight in him at all.
Mm.
Because he's not gonna hurt Hayden. That's
Yeah.
not happening.
Yeah.
He wouldn't have been able to hurt Mother, even though he would have tried.
Yeah, those Mother fights, I really enjoyed playing around with Mother. Um,
Oh. Since we're talking about Mother and fighting, and
yeah.
you two, you, Jack and Alex, this is for the both of yous. Yeah. The escape mechanic? Hey, fuck you, buddy.
I loved it.
It was fine. It was fine.
Yikes.
It
Yikes.
was fine.
No,
I just took all of the damage. It was fine.
What if you didn't have those? Is the thing, because like if any of the others, like Esme going like I'll defend. Why would we do that?
Wham!
Why did we do that? Why did we do that?
Yep.
Oh, that is like that was so stressful, and of course it came down to one roll
Oh,
at
yeah.
the end.
Yep.
There. Oh
Yep.
God.
That was
Talk
so good.
about the dice telling a story.
Yep.
Eek.
It
Yeah.
had to go that. Honestly, if Nibbles has had more than one die, he might have made it out. But Jack came in and was like, no, you only get the one.
Yep.
Oof.
Yeah, we had the
Pretty rough.
mayhem meter go off right at the end. That made things more difficult.
I'm so sorry. So listen, the fact that we were one shy was bugging me. So I told my friend to donate. So they
I mean,
did.
yeah.
And so it's
You
my
killed
fault.
Nibbles.
It's my fault, but also it was driving me nuts. I was like, we were one away. Stop it.
Well, at that point, you were more than one away because part of the mayhem meter was smashing the ship further back into the other ship. So I gave you a point there, and then somebody else.
Been able to.
I think you were at 3 or 4 away on that last turn.
Not the successes. I was talking about the amount on the mayhem meter.
Yeah.
I was talking about the amount on the mayhem meter.
Oh, right. Yeah, we were $1 away. Yeah.
Yeah. Somebody
Is
win.
it seeing this message in the chat right now?
Wasn't there still an extra dice floating around? I don't think so.
I don't think there was.
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
Yeah,
Okay.
tragically, I don't think so.
Okay.
I hope not.
I
That would make me feel bad.
I should have just waited and pleaded with the audience. If you have channel points.
I wasn't giving you the time at that point. We were so
Jack had made the
butted up
threat.
to.
Jack was like, "If we're not out,
Yeah.
y'all are dead."
Yep. We don't resolve this by 9 o'clock. That's a hard cut. Boom. Things
We
explode.
have like 2 minutes left.
Yep.
Yeah, we were very, very close. Also, I think it's very rude that you didn't let us use our own channel points on other people. It's fine.
Well, see, now you have to come back for future seasons and help out other casts.
Yeah, play it forward.
That's the racket I employ. I mean, that's the friends we make here along the way.
Yes.
Yes, we see.
Yeah.
Yes. The racketeering was the friends we made along the way.
No, hey, I do the same thing on a crumbling foundation. I have like 15,000 points on Lion's channel, but I'm not. I refrain from spending those points. I may eventually. I might start giving enemies extra dice or hitting the emotional damage button because that's what I like doing with my points.
I will say, I will just put it out there, Jack, that my GM Will did make a comment that he really wishes there were villain points on this channel because that's his favorite thing to do is to drop into any game I'm in that is not with him and to drop villain points. So that may be something to set up with some points.
I will keep that in mind.
Sorry to everyone who comes on here after me.
Yeah.
He's an absolute monster. I love him so much.
I don't have... Oh boy, what did I do here now? Oh well. Yeah, I guess I didn't set that up. That might be something to do in the future. I like that.
No. The Goblin will do that too. They love giving the bad guys.
Yeah.
Anything I'm in, just whoop, give it to the villain. No, stop it.
They kept trying to do that.
Yeah,
I know.
They summoned Vacutron.
The villains don't even roll, and they just kept trying to give them dice.
Yeah.
I know. They love to cause me stress.
Yeah.
It's fine.
I was
They're goblins for a reason.
I was finding some things to do with the dice given to NPCs. Well, I think actually this is a good point for us to go on a quick break because we were talking for quite a bit now, but we did the epilogues. We've talked a lot about the rules, tools, and themes again, and how they would best apply to any individual table and any individual players. So I hope you guys found that helpful. I think we're gonna go take a quick break, be back in like 10 minutes or so, and then we'll just do kind of an extended after show. And we've kind of been doing a lot of that already, just sort of roundtable discussion. But I have some interesting talking points about the game itself, about the gameplay, and some interesting talking points about the show. And of course, if any of you guys out in the audience have any questions for myself as to how I ran things, want to peek behind the screen, I'm happy to answer those. If you have any questions for Alex about game design, I don't want to speak for him, but I'm sure he'd be interested in chatting about that. And if you have any questions about all of our fantastic characters here, feel free to ask those questions because I'd love those insights too. But we're gonna get up, stretch, do the human things we need to do, and then be back in about 10 minutes or so to finish out this talk. We will be right back. Hello, we have returned from doing our human things, and we're ready to be entertaining humans once more. So yeah, we've been having an exciting conversation about Cyberrats, the game as a whole. We've had some great anecdotes and insights to the story that we've told, and I hope that through this analysis of the rules and character concepts and gameplay and tone, I hope it helps define to you, each of you in the audience individually, whether this sounds like a good game for you. And I certainly had a ton of fun with it. Definitely feel free to ask any questions you might have, audience members out there. And I'm going to drop Alex's info once again. So if you are enjoying this and you want to go pick up the game, go and do that. The link's right there. Whichever way I need to point. Go check it out. It's a fantastic game. All right, so I think we're going to round out our last little bit of this show. We got about an hour left. Let's round this out with just some interesting talking points. So I have some interesting game side talking points, some interesting show side talking points. And again, you guys, both audience and cast, feel free to ask me questions. But let me start with a fun one, because I'm interested. What was your favorite mission?
One where we finally killed Cervantes.
So the finale.
Yeah.
It was just
Actually,
part one.
yeah.
The finale was just it was great.
Finale
I was
part
gonna say
one
the
was
finale,
actually
yeah.
my favorite one as well, especially
It was just-
that mission too, because
Yeah.
that was when we started just like Gravity Ball and
Mhm.
Hank chops everyone in
Yeah.
range.
Yeah, we cleared that first band
Yeah.
immediately.
And the ending of that was so good because we powered through that first half, and then we ended with like, okay, we did the first thing. How we all doing? Oh, we're all completely out of biotech. Oh, no one has any shard left. Oh, there's still another mission.
Mhm.
Like that was just such a great cliffhanger.
Mhm.
100%.
Yeah, no, it definitely left us like, oh, are we fucked? Are we boned right now?
It was all Jack. Like full credit to Jack there. None of that was in the book. Like building that environment, kudos.
Hell yeah,
I'm
it was so good.
I'm glad it worked out as intended. And it very much did.
Yeah, and that plus the inclusion of the mayhem meter with Vacutron.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Vacutron showing up. That was so much
Mhm.
fun.
For you.
I loved it. You guys made short work of Vacutron.
It
I
was
got
fine.
eaten.
Yeah, for one round.
It's
Yeah, it was
true.
fine. It was fine, Nibbles.
I didn't
It's
even
fine.
get to
No.
do anything fun with you.
You know, that one was wild. I had a fantastic time. That was also one of the ones because it was our fault, and by our fault I mean my fault. I misunderstood like how things were gonna go. I really thought we were gonna have to hold it down before we got to, and then it turns out we just needed three real good rolls
Yeah.
to get things set up, and I was like, oh,
Mhm.
so we could have just gotten there and it'd have been fine. But the detour to kill Cervantes,
Yeah.
the Leo,
I did it again.
absolutely. You know, it played out like the way it needed to, and that was just incredible.
Yeah, that one little adversary that I bought when you guys bought Trisha hung around for quite a while. Really caused you
Yep.
guys some pain.
Yeah.
Did
The
work
worst
because,
one.
because you strategically kept him in places where we would have to like
Yeah, you had
deviate
to
from
detour.
the mission.
Yep.
Yeah, no, so it was really smart, which meant he got to stick around far longer than he ought to have.
Yep.
The little bastard.
He was in
It's
like 4 or
fine.
5 missions. I got a lot of use
Yeah.
out of Cervantes.
Mhm.
Yeah, I hated him.
I hated him so much. Like, there's such a difference between a power that costs 1 and a power that costs 2.
Yep.
Like,
Mhm.
I didn't have a whole lot with Hank, so like being cut in half, like what I
Mhm.
had, was just really rough.
Mhm.
And then you gotta hope that you get a biotech drop,
Mhm.
and like that nobody else needs it. It was a lot. It was really well played, and it lended to the, oh god, are we gonna make it?
Yeah.
Every time. Mm.
No, that was a really fun episode. I'm glad you guys enjoyed the finale.
Yeah.
I was
Did you have a
terrified of
favorite?
it.
Yeah, I mean that's fair. There
Um,
was that was a Herculean effort that you put forth, my dude. Like, that was a lot that you put on your plate
it was a lot.
to try and make it. Yeah, but you
Mhm.
knocked it out of the park, man. It
Why,
was
thank
so
you.
Yeah,
good.
incredible.
Yeah.
My favorite mission. I mean, there's so many good moments, and I think that's what my next question is going to be. But my favorite mission, I'm drawn back to. I'm pretty sure it was one of the first missions. Uh, let's see here. Because I have all my missions here. I don't. Yeah, it was Operation Colomir's Cage, which I think was the second primary mission we went on after
That
our
was
intro.
that was gonna be my other one, because
Yeah.
that's the one that had the obelisk.
The
Yeah.
biotech refinery with the
Yeah.
little mall sensor things that would drain your biotech, and yes,
Mhm.
the obelisk
Yes.
that you needed to pick up. Yeah, that was a real fun mission, and I love the way
Yeah.
that you guys picked up on all those little environmental hooks and really ran for it, hacking into the bio sappers and
Mhm.
re-engineering them to like poof out more biotech. I think that was
Yeah.
a fantastic use.
Mm-hmm.
That was one of the few missions where somebody did go down. I think that was one of Aaron's characters again.
Yeah, that was the mission Ian went down.
Ian went down,
And
Ash also went.
and Ash went.
Yeah,
And
you
Yeah,
both went down.
Yep.
Right,
that
because
got
then that
slippery at
led
the
to the
end.
moment. That was when Ash was like, you should go to the
That's
med bay.
right.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
I'd blocked that from my memory because I didn't want to think about the implications of that.
And
ever
that's when I
again.
stole your
Yep.
sword.
Yeah.
Yep, that's when he stole
Yep.
the
So
sword.
rude.
Yep.
Oh man, that was so rude.
So that's probably my favorite episode because just so much happened in that one otherwise largely inconsequential episode.
Hmm.
Mm.
No, that was a really good one. That was also the pack rat Nibbles beef.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
That's when that started. Yep.
Yep.
This isn't a whole mission that I loved, but I just want to call out Q once again for, I think it was like the second mission when Jack, you're like, all right, well, the mission's over, we're done. It was at the barn.
That was the
yeah.
very
That was
first mission. Yep.
First
That was the
mission.
first-
Okay, we're done here. The mission's over. And Q's like, wait,
Hold up.
Yeah.
can I just do like a running sprint and grab that guy? Because like he's gonna get away. I'd prefer if he didn't. And you're like, roll for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was just a beautiful moment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That was again, thank you for allowing me to do that, because that was one of the moments where I was like, no, Hank is like, no, but there's still, and I'm fast enough, I can do it. I can do the
Yep.
thing. And of course Freighter Joe helped. Having the two
Yeah.
of them together,
Power
it's
team.
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, let's keep that going because my next question would be what one moment throughout this whole story do you think best exemplifies a character? Your character, somebody else's character. What is somebody's best character moment? That was just so them.
Oof. Okay. This is a tough one, because there are.
I've got one for Ian, and it was one of the last downtimes where it was just like everyone coming to your room.
Mhm.
Like, just like the third time someone comes into your room and Ian is just there, and they're just like, yep, yeah, sure, come on it. Like,
Sure,
who
this is
else is
happening.
lay this at my feet? Like, everyone's just coming to you and being like, hey, I've got something really heavy I need to tell you.
Yep.
And you just took it. Like, I just love that they just took it. Like Ian is just so
Yeah.
good.
You ran with that, like you
Mhm.
really embraced that, and it was so good. It made for a very good cohesion for the party as a whole. Like both teams together kind of centralized on Ian. Fantastic.
Well, and I'm sorry to hog the spotlight for just a moment longer, but Hank and Hayden's moment has to be that same downtime
I was the
in the
hospital.
hospital.
I was
Yep.
gonna
Yeah.
say that. That
It
was
has to
definitely
be.
Hanks.
Yeah, right. Because like that actually coming to light. Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh
Yeah.
God.
I
Jack
loaded up that
bastard.
last downtime.
You
You
bastard.
did.
There
Just
were
Oh, look at all these toys you gave me in session 0. I haven't used any of them.
uh-huh. So I
there were
think
there were so many pack rat moments.
I know that's
Like
a really hard one.
every briefing, pack rat was just like on Himalaya's ass.
yeah. I think like if you had to sort of boil down the RP moments for Packrat, I think it was the one-on-one conversation with Himalaya. Same for Esme, actually.
Yep. Yep. I was thinking that too.
Yep. The ones because it was that talk of like, hey, I see you, get it together, or you're gonna regret it. It wasn't a threat, it was a promise.
Yeah.
And Himalaya was like, square up, like professionally. She was like, I bet. And then of course the fall from grace, unbeknownst to Himalaya, which was so good. Esme just the turn. That was so good.
Yes.
That made me
Oh,
so happy because you could see the moment where Esme goes, "Oh,
Yep.
I see. Yeah,
also,
yeah.
when Packrat was, because I think Packrat talked to her after Esme,
Huh?
and Packrat was like, are gonna have to look like you're gonna have to like watch out for your underlings if you keep treating them like this, except for Esme. And
Yes,
it's like
yes,
right after Esme has been like, I'm gonna burn this place down.
yeah.
Mhm.
Because Packrat didn't see that. Like so,
Mhm.
they don't know. But it was definitely one of
It
those
was
like
delicious irony.
absolutely.
Mhm.
It'll make the betrayal. They started it. It'll make the betrayal that much sweeter. Um, Also, Nibbles.
Nibbles. Oh my
So
god.
many Nibbles.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I have to personally say the conversation between Ian and Nibbles, where like
Yes.
Nibbles finally started to have that shift, like be able to hear, hey, you're going to get left behind if you keep doing this. And Nibbles being like, I don't want that to happen.
Right.
Mhm.
What do
Well,
I need
and
to do to prevent that?
you gave me the opportunity to bring up my brother.
Mhm.
And that was just that was one of like easily a top 3 moment for this campaign. Maybe even my favorite moment is just that conversation with you. That was just grand, and watching the chat lose their collective mind.
Mhm.
So like shout out to Chloe and others in that moment who were just like, "What is happening?"
Yep.
Yeah. Also, going with that moment, it was the immediate mission after Nibbles because he'd already like he did in the finale. He went back for somebody.
Mhm.
He made sure
Mhm.
that everyone made it out. So it was just that seeing that moment of him making the change and actually following through with it
Mhm.
definitely crystallized who they were as a person. Um, I think, of course, again, the Hank and Hayden scene in the hospital. 10 out of 10, amazing.
Can't be beat.
You
Mhm.
aren't allowed to look at me like that anymore, JD. Never in life. Seeing you sad and disappointed and upset with me, didn't like it. 0 out of 10. Would not recommend. I know that's a lot, especially, considering we're gonna be playing. You're gonna be running a thing for me, so I'm going to see that. But still, like that, the look of heartbreak on your face did Hank in. He was no more good.
You're
but
welcome.
also, yeah, but also when you snapped at Himalaya, and then everybody realized it was Hayden.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that one was top notch. Seeing that sort of innocence and naivete, like having that veil lifted, was so very good.
Yeah, Hayden definitely changed a lot over the course of this this demo play.
Oh, we can't forget about Ash.
Or Esme. I mean, we talked a bit about Esme. Esme just had so many good moments. I'm also obsessed. I just have to call it out. The first time you used the gravity ball, that was incredible.
That
When
was
we were at
so
the abandoned amusement park.
Yep.
That was
So
so
The arcade.
Uh,
Just boop. That was so good.
Well, when you were like, okay, so you're gonna have to roll to search this like big arcade full of like nooks and crannies. I'm just like,
but what if I didn't?
No.
Oh yeah.
So I think that's a great segue into a different discussion, unless Q you had.
Oh,
we have to call out a Freighter Joe and Ash moment.
All right, yeah.
We need to call out moments for both
I will
of them.
hold.
Yes.
Okay, Ash. RP moment. Ash and Ian. You need to go to the med bay. That one. That was the start of the emotional damage, for sure.
That was such emotional damage. Like I said, I blocked it out of my mind because I couldn't even think about it.
Because it hurt too much.
It hurt too much.
It's a toss-up between the Valdivian story mission and the finale of Ash just going buck wild with the. I think it's got to be the Valdivian. You rocketed down that hallway, like using oomph, just pow, pushing them back, and you're moving forward every time. Was incredible, just amazing. Lucretia, she's a bad bitch. We love her.
I'm glad I never fully failed because that was like I deserved to lose that gun for everything I was putting.
It was gonna blow up in your face.
Yeah, that would have been real bad. Freighter Joe, literally any RP moment. That sweet dumb idiot. I love him so much. He's
driving the
good.
forklift.
Mm-hmm.
Driving the
Correct.
forklift.
That was the moment.
Oh,
That was the in-mission moment.
Yep.
And then Hank's like sort of in-mission moment was the wave of rat swarms.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, they had to go. They had to go, and the sword would make it so. That was good and important.
Hank went full Leonidas on those rat swarms.
Mm-hmm.
Loved it so much. So yes, that was good.
Yeah, but you bring up two interesting talking points about the game itself that we've kind of talked about, at least one of them, the discussion of guns and tags and how that can really add up. Let's hold that one because I want to talk a little bit more about skill checks, and I think this is this is a part of the game that I think was most difficult for me to sort of bend my GM brain around, because I'm used to very prompt heavy, keyword heavy, narrative type games, not as thoroughly and rigidly turn by turn, action by action sort of situation. And there were a number of times when I was thinking, okay, we'll do this stretch as a sort of skill challenge sort of things. I know that's something they started using in D&D for fifth edition. We used to do that all the time in 3.5, other games, all sorts of stuff. Where I was really more or less looking exactly the beginning of part 2 for our finale, when you were making your way through the ship. That wasn't the first time I attempted it, but up until then, most of those times you guys dropped down into, as you would expect in a Lumen game, drop down, okay, I have 2 actions and all these powers, I'm going to use this power, and I'm going to move up, and I'm going to roll for this, and I'm going to do all of that, and I'm like, all right, wait, hold up, I just want you to roll me one thing, and tell me how you're getting through this entire elongated development. And that's not something that's really represented in the rules. It's not encouraged or facilitated in the rules, I would say. You can definitely use those 3 attributes, Cyber, Sly, and Smash, to interact with the environment. I think that's exactly the words as it's presented in the book. You can interact with your environment in different ways by using these different attributes. But not so much in the sort of skill check kind of way. It came down to a lot of, I want to use all of my actions, I want to use all of my powers. So how did that affect how did the rules and how this game was presented affect how you decided to go about solving problems?
We had to be a lot smarter. But you had to be clever, and they had to think tactically in order to get things done with the skill things, especially because like the actions were sort of amorphous. Like we could use the flavor of the powers and the abilities that we had, but we weren't actually using them. So it was just kind of like making it fit and making sure that we were staying in the parameters of sort of what you'd set up for us. Like I know when I first was doing those with Pack Rat, it was like, okay, like what can I get away with? Because I was trying to
game the game.
I would listen. You can't, don't knock the hustle. You know what I'm saying? I wanted to make sure I had my best foot forward.
Yeah. Alex, what's your take on that? Did what I wanted to try to do actually fit into Cyberrats, into a Lumen game, or did you just like that didn't work? It wasn't necessary.
Oh, I am not going to tell anyone that they're running Cyberrats wrong. Especially because I think I'll speak for myself here. I had fun doing it. I think everyone else had fun doing it. So I'm not going to be like, you know what, Jack, you're reading between the lines and you're gone too far. No, it was fine. You can look. I wrote the book. It's out of my hands when you start running it. I can't stop you from doing however you want to do it.
Yeah, I think it added a different flavor, so it wasn't. It broke up the combat rounds, player phase, enemy phase. So it added a different flavor, which really brought more life in the moment to the finale. It kept the tension up because like these were 1 rolls like per person. It's 1 roll per person. That could really fuck us up because you were putting us in some real dangerous situations. Like Pack Rat checking like one of the avenues first really helped, because if we had gone through that door and then tried to do things, that would have been buck wild.
Yeah.
The fucking Star Wars drop down room. Yeah, no, that'd have been crazy. So like I think that really added more life and more depth to the finale, and that scene. It was some of my favorite shit.
All of that was exactly what I was going for, so I'm glad it was depicted that way. It was received that way, I should say.
Also, the pod room is real scary, and I don't like it.
Yeah, didn't like that.
Listen, you were in your spook bag in that pod room, my dude.
Yep.
You were. You pulled out the big guns description wise.
I thrive in space sci-fi horror. That is
Mm.
my jam.
Mhm.
I had so much fun designing part 2 of this finale. I mean, we could play how many references did I make? I mean, there has to be references to a dozen different sci-fi shows in the finale. I had so much fun putting that together. So, I'm glad you guys enjoyed it. Yeah, so I think that is something you have to keep in mind as players and as a GM when presenting this game. If you are going to try to run that, it might help to just like put on a T-pause and be like, "Hey guys, this is what I'm trying to do." Because I did have to say that. I was like, "Okay, this is more what I'm going with. It's a longer sort of drawn out event, but I want one roll. How are you going to go about it?"
Yeah.
As I know when we just jumped into it, you were like, "I use my power to open up the door." Love it, but we're talking about one door out of a corridor of like 15.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
So that was more what I was going with there, and I'm glad it worked out that way. But I wanted to find some way to have all of your characters really demonstrate that they were skilled at their specific specialties without that just being checking off a resource on your sheet. Because
Yep.
you have a lot of really incredible powers. All 8 of your characters had incredibly useful powers, but there's there's a big difference when we're talking about it from a narrative standpoint of just going, I run up to the door and I spend 1 biotech to open it, as opposed to I run up to the door. Okay, I need to crack open the plating around the console. I need to get in there. I don't need to move the wires out of the way. I start chewing on them and plugging them into different things, and fires going on behind us. And oh, the door just cracks open, and Freighter Joe needs to push it open the rest of the way. I think you just get so much more out of really defining and playing through those moments, and the tension of just having to roll. Even if you have something ridiculous like your 6 or 7 dice and smash. For Hank there, but just the scare of having to roll, even if you know you're going to be super good at it, really adds tension to it that you don't get when you can just be like, okay, I have 9 biotech, boop, problem solved.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it was definitely really good to have it outside of the realm of the powers. It
Mhm.
was like, no, this is a lot. I need to see you make a roll about it, especially because if you fail, things go bad. Also, you lose biotech, you lose HP. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's definitely like you got to bring your A game. And so,
Gotta
yeah,
hope that the dice like you.
yes,
And
absolutely.
they did for a big chunk of this whole season. You guys were rolling
Surprising
so well,
amount.
so often.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there were only a couple of bad moments. Like the horse incident comes to mind.
Yes.
That was fine. That
Oh,
was
I love that.
fine.
You got
I
kicked
love
in
the
the chest
horse
by a horse.
incident.
No, weren't. It was not fun. And then of course, our last escape roll. Ugh,
Mhm.
it was so rough.
I loved the way the escape section was presented in the book. I took a lot of liberties with the rest of the finale, but I read that and like, this is just golden. Alex, I
Yeah,
loved the escape mechanism for the finale, the final portion of the finale.
yeah. No, that was very good. Uh, this is a for Alex thing. Hey, give me one more power slot. Give me one more ability slot. I
Mm.
need it. Give it to me.
I, I actually was feeling that on Nibbles. I was like, oh, I can't choose.
Just one more.
It's
It's
always going to
all
be
I
just
need.
one more.
Yeah.
No. No. I could be fine with 6. Like 6 really,
Mm.
because like,
You say that now, Q. You say that now.
okay, listen, just
Imagine
because
it was 4. Imagine if it was 4.
Yeah.
absolutely the fuck not. I mean, no, thank you. Yeah, but like I had hijack, but also the my little blind spot, that's what it's called, the blind spot power.
Mhm.
Having both of those would have been so helpful. Getting through on that second thing would have been so good. Also, or maybe the one where I take all your tags. That'd have been nice.
Mm.
Yep, that's good. I'm gonna shoot real good, and I'm gonna take all these tags, and that thing is dead. Bye-bye. Like, it would have been super helpful.
Yeah, that limit of 5 powers was definitely a rough one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
especially because the passive ones count too.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Passive
Yeah.
ones count towards that. Yeah.
I have to make a confession. The reason for that 5 is not for any balance reasons or anything. It's just so that you don't have like analysis paralysis.
Oh.
I don't want to give players too many options so that they're like, "Oh, hang on, it's my turn again. What could I do?" If you only have 5, and especially if you had to pick them beforehand, you know what those 5 are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a really cool insight. Thank you for that, Alex.
I really liked that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's actually really good. No,
Makes sense.
it makes all of the sense. Give me one more.
Mhm.
But it's just one more. Six
Just
won't
one.
change things.
6 won't change anything. Yeah. Well, and like quite honestly, if I gave you the ability to buy one more slot, like you would probably be fine because
Yeah.
you are aware that you are taking that action. You're going to be cognizant of it.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'll make a note.
That
Hey.
could be an
about it.
interesting
I'll think about
new room or new power that you could pick up.
Ooh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
A new
I love
power.
Yeah, good room ability. Yep. Boog's right there with us.
We love that.
Yeah, but speaking of all of this, yeah, when it comes to the combat pacing of this game, I really saw some variability there because there were times when you knew exactly what needed to be done and you could just dish out combo after combo. I zip up there, I attack, I use this power, I jump back over here, I grab my buddy, bring him up with me, I attack again. It's a lot in one turn, but oftentimes you guys were pretty snappy about it. The difficulty in things slowing down the combat, I think, comes down to just all of the tags that can be applied. Which is the title of my next article, Guns, 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 or When Are There Too Many Damn Tags, Lucretia?
Yeah.
So Alex,
Yeah.
any thoughts on future additions to limiting the number of tags you can put on any one item? Or do you just you want to spend all your script on tags? There you go. Your weapon does literally everything.
Yeah, I'll say we don't have any plans to limit it, but I am aware that can get out of hand. Yeah,
It's just difficult to keep track of.
Yeah.
You can do a lot of really cool things with it, but it just slows it down so much because you're like, okay, this gets pushed back, so then okay, she's there and they're there. Does this much damage? Okay, that goes through barrier and soak. We got shard. Okay, it explodes. The explosion doesn't go through barrier and soak. That pushes everyone else back. It was so much.
It was a lot.
Yeah, I will say there are a lot fewer new tags in the expansion, and most of them are on armor.
Yeah.
We didn't see much from armor.
I think, and I kept forgetting. Not that I think a lot of the enemies that ended up hitting Hank were at range because he had spiked armor.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think one of them hit me at one point. But yeah, no, we didn't really explore the armor tags, and I really feel like maybe next time I would. I had stealthy on, like I was really doubling up on the do not perceive me with pack rat.
Right.
Like, yeah, we're not here, babes. But yeah, no, I think in future, like if I play this again, I'm gonna play around with the armor tags, just see what other damage and fun stuff.
Momentum is a popular one where when you get hit, you can move.
Yeah.
I think that's momentum. But yeah, the other thing we're experimenting with is giving more. I know this is the opposite of what you asked for, Jack, but we're adding more tags to melee weapons because they're underserved by tags at the moment. But again, trying to keep it simple.
I mean, kinda. Like you saw the dumb I did with my sword.
Oh yeah,
Like,
I'm not saying they're without.
Right, because like greedy on a sword attack, babes. yeah.
Yep.
With the arc sword, got buck wild. Now
Yep.
it also had the chance of coming back and biting me in the ass.
Yep.
Because if I rolled a 6, I was doing like 8 to 10 damage, and some like half of that coming back to me is 5.
Yep.
Oh.
With
But yeah, no.
with recoil and reflect and all the painted I was giving you guys.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you guys amassed quite a few stacks of paint.
Yeah. Once per comment, you could pull it in me. Yes, please. Yes, please. I want it.
Mm.
That's
Nice.
just one little preview of what's coming.
All right.
That's really cool.
More to come in Briny
Ooh.
Bastards.
Yes.
Magnetic arc sword. Don't mind if I do.
Yep.
Oh, Hank's gonna be a monster. I love this. I love this a lot. I was about to say a thing and I think I lost it. It's gone.
I distracted you with
Mm.
magnets.
You did. I'm so excited about it.
Well, I will say, the fact that I truncated this so much and gave you guys such a heavy script handicap to compensate for that, I think lends itself to the ways you guys were spending your script. Because again, if we were playing through a more elongated format of this game, you might not have had as many opportunities to save that script and apply it to tags. You would have spent it at the clinic, or you would have been buying more rooms or whatever it may have been. So your mileage will almost certainly vary in your own game as opposed to this demo play, but I tried to keep it as on track as I could.
Yeah.
But when your players get to high level, it's difficult. It's difficult challenging them.
I think again, just going back to how much we got like per mission, but of course the limited number of missions. I think if we would have had more, we'd have had more time to like see in the moment what more we really would have needed, like buying up more shard, buying up more soak.
Mm-hmm.
So like there would have been a different sort of build up, I think, because realizing very quickly that like some of these bad guys, you can't just come with a piddly sword. You got to do big damage. You got to be big bad off rip. So that is why a lot of us like put into weapons just to make sure we were, getting through, because otherwise it really bogged down. Like in the
also lethal
age.
and pierce.
Yes, those are
help
so important.
much.
Oh yes,
Those are so important. The cage mission, I think that was when we realized that like, oh no, we really got to do different with our weapons.
And after that mission, UQ were like, hey, everyone, if you don't have lethal, answer to me. Answer to me and tell me why you don't have it.
Yeah, no, it was important. They say, or at the very least, pierce, man. Like, getting through that soak is so crucial, especially because that was when we first experienced true harm, and I was like, oh, they're not playing around. Got it. Cool.
True harm is mean.
You said the mech was the meanest enemy. I think the anti-biotech personnel are really the ones I fear the most.
100%. Yeah,
they're definitely
I
up
hated
there.
them every time. Every time they showed up.
Because they drained. And they were favored, I think?
Favored with Keen 2 and Shred. The anti-biotech personnel are no joke. They are tough. They don't hit as hard as the mech. I think the mech is more dangerous, but the anti-biotech personnel is trickier, especially in the long run.
No one knows about the progenitor, Boog. Progenitor is one of the titular briny bastards.
All right.
Okay.
More sneak peeks.
Yeah.
I like this.
They're scared. They're not messing around. No, I don't want to take the attention away from this by just advertising the expansion the whole time.
I mean, we're here to talk about Cyberrats, and the expansion is the next thing coming out for Cyberrats. I'm all for it.
Please tell us more.
Nothing, Boog. Never apologize.
I liked the interaction between like the different tags and then like the enemy abilities
Yeah.
and like because you had to find a good balance of like you doing damage and like not receiving as much.
Hmm.
Again, Hank was very much bad about that. Like the multiple attacks against the mech was just it was bad.
Yep.
It was not a smart idea. He didn't have much shard, but he was like,
Uh,
I'm gonna eat you now with swords.
Hmm.
It's so good.
I will fill in. So the what Boog was hinting at in the chat, the progenitor does just one true harm at far range, but it inks people, uh, and ink is just a really bad new condition. And it doesn't just ink the person that it hits; it inks everyone nearby.
Mm.
Oh no,
Uh,
I'd hate to see it.
we do.
And I am trying to remember what ink does. I believe that it's basically keen. You roll one fewer die for every stack of ink that you have.
Mm.
Oh no.
Uh, and they just ink everyone nearby and just spray out.
Question for you. Can you get rid of ink?
Don't like that.
You can. You can.
Mm-hmm.
I believe it's just an action to get rid of inked.
Okay.
I believe.
But that eats an action.
It eats an
Yeah.
action.
Love it. Love it.
Rude, which is disrespectful. I'm interested. I'm intrigued. I love this a lot. Mm.
Another interesting insight that I would say about the enemies is doing this in the future, I think I would try to find more ways to use the special moves that they had. I tried to use a few of them. I think I was better at it in the beginning, when I was still playing around with all of these enemies and with how powerful you guys were becoming. But
Mhm.
as we progressed, I looked at all of these powers and I thought, these all sound like interesting things to do, but they're just not as scary as me dealing damage, unfortunately.
I mean, it may be. Did any of the enemies during the uh ship going into the mothership fight have where you could like stop a power?
That would be against the interlopers. Those were mainly robo-reps. Um, and a lot. I mean, the moves are entirely prompt-based. They can be whatever I wanted them to be,
Mhm.
for the most part. Let's see. Like the robo-reps have run to the side of another interloper, so that could have taken the place of like a longer move action. I suppose growl menacingly I might have been able to use, like, come up with some sort of debuff.
Yeah.
All in all, I think I like the idea of the moves, and doing this in the future as a GM, I would probably sit down and say, I'm going to use these specific enemies for this map, this mission, which I did do, but I didn't take it the step further and look at the moves and be like, how can I relate these moves to the mission and the map? Because I
Yeah.
look at a lot of these and I think they're really cool. I like the idea of growling menacingly, but coming up with a debuff on the fly for a game that doesn't really have modifiers so much as this one,
Mm.
Mm.
I
Just
one didn't want to get bogged down into having to think up stats on the fly,
yeah.
especially because I was challenging myself with the pacing every damn episode. Um, but also because your character's main fragility is your soak, mainly. I mean, when it comes down to it, once you're past that halfway point in the game, whether character or NPC, your HP basically becomes your number of
Your,
shard.
your shard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's true. It's true.
So
However, shutting down Freighter Joe's like 3V
yeah,
would have made that mission a lot harder.
yeah,
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
So like I'd be interesting to see like how the specific powers sort of like change the scenery, I
yeah.
suppose, like change the flow of the game. Those be interesting.
Yeah, there are a lot of really cool powers that moves that each of the enemies have, and I should have played around with them more.
Yeah. I mean, but again, you had a lot going on. Uh,
Yeah.
a lot you were throwing
I
at us.
I did use one of the mech's powers on, I think it was Esme, to destroy all of her
Mhm.
barrier in one
Yes,
move,
I
and you were
was
like,
thinking
"Damn!"
that. Yep.
Yeah. I was like, oh no.
Mhm. So the moves can be quite detrimental.
It was fantastic. Some of those bad guys were scary. They were real
Yeah,
scary.
yeah. Let's see. What do we want to wrap up with? We got about 10 minutes or so and still have outros to do. I think we've pretty much covered everything I want to talk about. Do you guys, cast or audience, do you have any questions for us? Last little bit, go ahead.
Favorite type of rat?
Fancy blue.
Okay. Now,
Don't know
favorite
any
type of
types.
cyber rat? Since we're
Okay.
being
Yeah.
being-
No, fancy blue rat is a base white rat, but not an albino because they don't have red eyes, but they have a gray stripe that goes from the point of their nose running all the way across the back. That's what Imalaya, my actual first rat. She was a show quality fancy blue, and she was beautiful and the sweetest little girl ever, and nothing like director Imalaya at all. Favorite rat type in Cyberrats? I mean, I gotta go with the rat swarm mind job. That is, yeah, that's just so good. That is so me.
Yeah, very good. I think it. I love them all. Don't get me wrong. The Enlightened Rat Swarm is Bay. It's just so good. Like you're just
Mhm.
a pile of rats in a trench coat, and
Hmm.
that speaks to my soul. Um, I, I do think I love the cyborg. I do. Really like the
Hmm.
cyborg. It's pretty dope. Yeah. Cyborg Trenchy, babe, let's go.
Yeah.
Let's cut him up.
Yeah.
I love the brute rat. I love the giant 6 foot rat. That's what's on the cover. It's what we're here for.
Yeah.
And I really love the vector. And part of it is because of the binary slash power and just the illustration that's in the book. Uh, I I just said, Boog, I want like a sword made out of binary, and he was like, got you. And I love that illustration, and it just makes me so happy. And when I think of cyber rats, I either think of this big dumb
Mhm.
brute rat on the cover, or that big vector with the binary sword, and
Yeah.
it just makes me
Yeah.
so happy.
Hell yeah.
Oh, all the artwork in this book
Oh
is
yeah.
absolutely
Artwork is
fantastic. Boog, you just so good.
yeah. The artwork is absolutely incredible.
Oh, yeah.
There's one of the rat swarms that looks like it's in like a Union soldier outfit that made me really happy. That was very good.
A lot of great art. Yeah, any more questions before we wrap it up? I think we're good. So I will speak to future audience out there. If you are watching this on YouTube and you have a question, there's little boxes down below where you can make comments. So leave a comment, ask a question, make a comment. Yeah, we'll try to get back to you. And otherwise, come hang out with us on Discord and Twitter. Both of those links are down below. The Discord link does work now. It was broken for a little bit there. Somebody reminded me it's fixed. Come hang out with all of these fantastic people and so many other amazing indie TTRPG creators and artists and playtesters and just general indie gaming enthusiasts and big name gaming enthusiasts too. Like, we don't have a problem talking about D&D or Pathfinder or Alien or Cyberpunk or whatever. We love all games, so just come in and hang out, ask your questions. Let's have some fun. Let's see. I think that is where we're going to wrap up, however. So one last final time, so much love and thanks to you four amazing individuals on the other side of my screen here. I could not have told this story without you guys. A GM is only as good as his players, their players, and you guys were fantastic. I loved every minute I had with each and every one of you. Let's go back around and tell everybody about where they can find you now that unfortunately they can't find you here. At least not yet, not anymore. So let's go back in reverse. JD, I'll be seeing a lot more of you. You're not going anywhere for me, but where can the
That is
audience
true.
find more JD?
Yeah, so I of course can always be found on social media at JD, not Jason Dean. Currently, I can be found with Live from the Apocalypse every other Tuesday and Sunday for Class Reunion and Academy H, respectively. That'll actually be this coming Tuesday and then the following Sunday. And you can also find me with Live from the Apocalypse this coming Friday, stepping into the GM seat for a season of Secrets and Shadows. Our Regency Monster Hearts game, which is 2 tables across 8 weeks, and it's going to be a wild time. And then, of course, as Jack alluded to, you can find me almost every Monday with Tales from the Table Studios for SCP: A Crumbling Foundation. You can also find me there tomorrow, where I will be playing in a Fate game as part of the Days of Tales 2. So that is mainly where you can find me at this time, but I'm always updating things on social media.
Awesome. Excellent. So much great stuff. All right, Aaron, what are you getting up to? You have all of your own games.
Yep. You can find me on Twitter at at Vale's Edge Games, and on itch also at Vale's Edge Games. That's where all of my games are. If you're interested in the Lumen system after seeing us play Cyberrats for several weeks, I also have a fantasy Lumen game named Firmament. It is a game about fighting corrupt magic with the powers of heavenly bodies. And yeah, so check those out, and I make announcements for new games and where I'll be on Twitter.
Excellent. Yes, does look incredible. It is added to my list. Q, you got
Right.
some good stuff coming up, right?
I do. I have many good things coming up. Hi, I'm Q. You can find me on the internet at Midnight Inc. That is Midnight_Inc. Q, that's INQ. Q is my name. I'm sure you get it by now. I am a performer on, we're doing Tales from the Table Studios. That is where I am, yes. Thursdays, Successor States of Rega. We're we had a little break, a little siesta, but hopefully we'll be back this actually coming Thursday, and then not the next Friday, but the one after that. I will be at the second table on Live from the Apocalypse for a season of Secrets and Shadows. It's been an absolutely feral time, just building up to session one for all of us. I'm so excited. I came to be a problem on purpose is the thing. Also tomorrow, I will also be continuing with Days of Tales 2. I'm I'm going to be on a panel for B BIPOC. Yes, BIPOC. Yes. Um, you know, our representation and experiences in the TTRPG community, because it's a little different. It's fun. It's interesting. And also, I have a podcast that I regularly forget. Um, it is called Code Switching Naturally. It is me and my sisters just talking about life and different subjects from the perspective of you know being a person of color. It's a lot of fun. We get in there. The last episode was a little raunchy. Don't worry about it. You can just wait for next week when it's a lot more wholesome. We're talking about the women of Broadway that we
Will it
love.
be though?
I made a little game.
Will it be
It's far more
wholesome?
wholesome. Listen, trust me, it is far more wholesome
You
than the
guys get
episode that just came
wild
out
sometimes.
yesterday. It was far more wholesome than what we did yesterday. It's fine. Don't even worry about it. Anyway, yeah. So that is all of me, I believe. Yes.
Excellent. Awesome.
Yes.
And of course, Mr. Cyberrats and future briny bastard himself, Alex Rinehart.
Hello. Yes, I have much less going on than all of my wonderful co-stars. But you can find me on Twitter where I tell lies about my enormous Labrador. And yeah, I have a Discord where I teach indie games each month. I haven't done that in a few months now because I've been super busy, but I will be picking that up soon. So if you like indie games, find me on Discord. And yeah, again, I am running open play tests of Briny Bastards on the Discord. I also have closed play tests. There are playtest packets I can give you if you want to run your own game. And yeah, Cyberrats Audio Hour is coming this summer, tentatively. Stay tuned on Twitter for that and anything else I decide to make. That's all I can think of.
Nice. Awesome. Looking forward to all of that. Yeah, let's see. I will be here because this is my channel. This is where you can normally find me. We're going to take a little bit of a break from RPGs Uncovered for a little bit. I have Season 5 almost all worked out. In fact, I think Season 6 is a little more stable right now than Season 5, but we're gonna make it happen. And in the meantime, I'm going to try to set up some one-shots, some solo games, even just some hangout and talk sessions, because I'm always down just to hang out and talk about new games coming up. And of course, check out the Whip Workshop creator interviews. We got a bunch over on YouTube already. A number that are still going on, I believe, but that is going to quickly be coming to a close. I think anything we have on there is going to be coming to a close sometime in the first week of April. But there are new projects being developed and crowdfunded and released all the time, and I try to do as much shouting out and helping to promote as I can on my Twitter. And if I bring somebody on board for Whip Workshop, throw out some information about them on the Discord. So if you're looking for a new game, if you're looking for new creators to support, come hang out over there, see what is coming down the pipeline, and be on the lookout for new information about all of those shows coming up. And if we get these guys back for the Rattalion job and their heist, because they apparently really want to play that game. Let's see, do I have anything else to go over? Yes, I do. Thank you so much for being supportive, not just for being here and not just for chatting or lurking. I love my lurkers. I'm a lurker myself. If you've been here, if you've been watching, if you've been enjoying the channel, thank you so much. I'm glad you're here. Thank you for spreading the word. I've seen a number of new followers. We've gotten some subs, and we've gotten some incredible donations this season with the Mayhem meter. So thank you so much to everybody who donated. I believe we're at $159. That's going to be cut equally between all of that, all of us. It really helps to pay for these incredible people and their time and their creativity and being awesome. That's always something that I've wanted to do with this show. I would love to get big enough to be able to pay my performers and my friends and creators out there from the start. That's my goal. Expand the TTRPG horizons, bring new people in the game, and help support indie creators, whether artists or musicians or game developers or even just fellow streamers. So that's what it's all about here at RPGs Uncovered. So it means so much to me that you are helping support my endeavor to support other people. And if you want to get into that even more, you can head over to Ko-Fi. We have all of the after shows up there. We have all of the character sheets up there, which should be revised with the final character sheet, so you can can see our little baby characters and the monsters they became towards the end. For the GM tier, we have all of my notes, all of my different maps, a couple of different GM philosophy blogs that I've written about my experiences with this game. So if you want to help support, there are definitely some cool things out there to help try to repay you back for that support. But thank you so much for everybody who has been here and talked and spread the show and donated, because it means so much. I will say for myself, you will be able to find me tomorrow on Days of Tales 2 over at Tales from the Table Studio. I will be in the Mutants and Mastermind game at 6 p.m. EST over there. I am playing a superhero named Soulfire, who is basically a combination of Raven from Teen Titans and Green Lantern, and it's gonna be incredible. I'm really looking forward to it. So come hang out over there. That is such an incredible charity event that Lion is running 36 hours throughout this entire weekend to help support NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness. I wanted to make sure I got that acronym correct. Such a meaningful, such an important cause, as was the case in Days of Tales 1. So go check that out. And in fact, if you want to stick around here on this channel, we will be rating them shortly, because I think, unfortunately, I have to stop rambling, let these guys move on with their day, and call it for Season 4. But I had so much time with all of you, cast and audience, thank you so much. Till next we meet, because we are going to meet again. Everybody stay safe, stay healthy, keep having fun, keep checking back here at RPGs Uncovered for more indie game content, and to celebrate a successful, fantastic show with incredible new friends, put together a little charcuterie board of delicious cheeses and heart tomatoes. Happy time zone, everybody. Stick around for the raid.